Good evening. This is the August 27th, 2024 Conservation Commission meeting. I just want to make an announcement that this meeting is being recorded by Area 58 and can be viewed on YouTube. Members present tonight is Ms. King, Mr. Diaz, and Ed Lane. Our first order of business, just so that everybody's clear, as the agenda says, we are going to be taking stuff that sort of out of order, and they're just going to be some small stuff. We're going to start this evening with 8 Hilda Lane Roadway, DEP SC number 171-0574. We have a request for a continuance. I just want to make a comment that I've reached out to the applicant on this, and they indicated that potentially they were going to withdraw for lack of getting us any information. So it's my suggestion that this would be the last continuance, but that's up to the board. But I would be looking for a motion to continue this with any conditions.
I'll make a motion to continue 8 Hilda Lane, and with the new information that the chair presented, that this be the last continuance.
Okay. Do we have a
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all in favor? 3-0. All in favor?
Aye.
3-0. Okay. Next item on the agenda is 8 Hilda Lane, DEP number SC 171-0579. The applicant has requested a continuance until 9/10, and this would be the same as the prior.
I make a motion to continue the hearing with the condition that it be the last hearing.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 3-0. Next order of business is 8 Hilda Lane, DEP number SC 171-0580. And this is in the same realm of things, so I would be looking for an additional motion.
I make a motion that we continue the hearing with the condition that it be the last continued hearing.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 3-0. Next matter on the agenda is going to be 105 Palmer Mill Road. Mr. Webby, before we begin, I got notice this afternoon that the review fees have not been paid on this particular project. So I think the commission is going to take the position until such time as the review fees are paid that we'll either close the hearing, if you so choose, or we're not going to take any action.
Well,
So anybody that wants to address it can address that issue.
Yes, hi, my name is John Duane. I'm here on behalf
Okay.
of Fabrowski Construction and Tim Fabrowski. First question would be, what's the outstanding balance on the fees owed?
I think it's $2,200.
My understanding is $1,600's been paid already, and we were actually looking for an accounting as to that number. And then $2,200, I believe, is for a different lot than 105 Palmer Mill. That's for the abutting lot.
You could be correct, that I'm not sure. I did follow the chain of emails. As far as we're concerned, this particular lot, when it went out to be reviewed, they found out there was wetlands disturbance, which created the additional issues with money. So that's what I understand right now. So if you have a different position, all I know is we have an outstanding invoice for $2,200. If either you're gonna pay that or,
Thank you. I have a copy of the invoice, but that invoice, again, refers to the notice of intent that hasn't been filed yet for 107 Palmer Mill Road. We're talking about 105.
the information that I have is for 105.
This one is job supplement date 7/22/2024, proposed number WQ23-713-2. Job supplement peer review, 105 Palmer Mill Road, map 84, lot 4, subdivision lot 7, Halifax, Massachusetts. So this is invoice to the commission is listed for 105 Palmer Mill Road. We don't have an invoice for 107.
Okay, I think maybe the street address is the problem.
Okay. Having said that,
Yes.
this should have been worked out. There's multiple emails went out for reminders, and I got CC'd on those. This should be addressed with the office. And, you know, we're volunteers, so.
With ecosystem or with?
No, this has got to be addressed with the office. The work was completed, there's reports that have been done, there's an outstanding balance. That's all I can tell you at this point.
Is there any update as to the work that's been done with the money that's been spent so far? The
The
1,600?
reports have been submitted, I can tell you that. I reviewed the reports. I didn't review any accounting on the reports. We don't. I know invoices must have gone out, proposal must have gone out, and that's what we have for a balance.
Um,
Go ahead, Mr. Lane.
Since there's some major confusion on this matter with the 105, 107 payments, what's it paid, this is just my opinion, I think we should continue it until that's straightened out. That's just my opinion, one member of the board.
I hate to see another continuance without some sort of status update as to the progress on the order of conditions itself. And I think 2 meetings ago, we had a statement from the Ecosystem Solutions that they were going to be working on the order of conditions. So I don't know if there's, any updates as to, or if anything's been done on it.
I know that the new orders, the reviews have come in, and they haven't been paid. That I can tell you. Ms. King.
The ecosystems is behind you.
Yes,
I was
okay.
just asking, but there, and I just refer to the conditions or anything to answer his questions and the boards.
Okay.
If they are done, or if there can be an update with the applicant in
Okay.
somewhat of a timely manner.
I'm going to limit it to, I think that this should have been dealt with at the office level. I'm going to say that there was at least 3 reminders that have gone out. So I don't think that this format should be able, we should try to address the bill. If there's an issue with the bill, come into the office, sit down with the admin, and we'll come up with a conclusion, but I don't think this is the format. So you've got an option if you want to continue it or you want us to close the hearing.
No, we'd rather continue to close the hearing, but we just want to make a statement on the record that we think we're being treated unfairly with an application of the rules here. And, but we look forward to discussing it at the next hearing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm looking for a motion to continue.
Hold on, Joe.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Webby's trying to talk.
Yeah,
Amy, please,
I know you
calm
opened
down
the
or I'll
hearing,
ask you
but
to leave.
I would like to suggest the carrot and the stick method. We're here, the only changes we've done to the plan is add a post and rail fence along the 50-foot line from the BBW. And as far as we know right now, that is the last thing that was requested from the commission. I think that, and I have no problem at all, and I'm sure that Tim can speak for himself, if we can get through to closing the hearing so that it's sufficient to issue an order of conditions, and you have it in a pile of papers that stay there until the money gets paid. That's the stick. I mean, if you know what I mean, so.
Okay, I have not seen a plan with the post and rail fence.
Okay.
So at this point, go ahead.
Because there's such confusion, this project's been in front of us so long, I'd like to propose that we at least hear Mr. Webby out, see the plans that have been changed, but take no action until payment has been made and the confusion is all handled. That way, the next time you guys come in, we can hopefully just move forward.
I don't see I agree with Kim on this one, just have them present it, don't vote on it, and
If I may, we submitted these revised plans to Peggy last Thursday in hopes that we would get on the agenda with the revised plans, and we certainly did. But all we added was a post and rail fence that'll have signage on it right along the 50-foot line. We have a detail of the fence. And I can see Ecosystem has a copy of it right there in the lab, so I know that's somehow it has been, at least submitted, and basically nothing else has changed, so we would like to, I guess I would like to ask for the closing of the hearing, and hopefully you issue an order of conditions.
So the difference between the prior plan and this plan is a post and rail fence.
That's correct, that's the only
And
difference.
what about the restoration?
The restoration plan we've already submitted, and I think that was part of the, I don't want to speak for ecosystem, but that was part of the review of the conservation mix to be placed, anything that was exposed, and Tim is willing to do that. And he has pictures of this being left wild, let's say, to grow as it is. And this is already heavily vegetated with weeds, but it's basically conservation mix. It's just weeds. But it's, and if we put up post and rail fence, that's gonna be just left like to act on its own. We're still willing to do conservation mix there for the winter time. But other than that, it's, again, I think we're not confusing things, but we're adding two different things here. Yeah.
Okay. Any board's got any comments or questions for Mr. Webby?
No, just thank you for
Yes.
revising the plan as the board had asked a few meetings back.
Was it reviewed by Ecosystems? I'd like to hear from
Yes,
them.
that's the next, that was my question.
Do I need to speak into a microphone or anything?
Just talk into that one. Just turn that one around so you can.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, there is one there. I'm sorry. Yeah, speak into that one, please.
Brandon Fana, Ecosystem Solutions, is it on? It says it's on. I received this from Peggy today, this plan right here. So I haven't had a lot of time to look at it. That said, I noticed two differences from the original plan. Split rail fence, like Joe was just saying, and the fact that the dwelling has been shifted to the south compared to the original one. So, you know, not much of a substantial change as far as work, you know, within their approved limit of work, will ultimately be the approved limit of work. The question, though, is what do we do with that plus or minus 50-foot zone between the wetland and the area they're gonna put the split rail fence that they jumped the gun on, so to speak, with the clearing of the land without permit? Is allowing it to grow up naturally, putting in a seed mix, will that satisfy the commission, or do you think it needs to be a little more robust than that? Does woody vegetation have to be supplemented? That's the question. So I noticed when I was out there, as far as trees, there's, in the surrounding area, immediate surrounding area, there's white pine, red maple, and black cherry. Also a minor amount of cottonwood. As far as shrubs, I noticed that there's arrowwood, there is high bush blueberry, and there's a lot of glossy buckthorn, which is an invasive plant. Okay. There's also a moderate amount of Asiatic bittersweet, which is another invasive plant. So the question is, do you think that woody vegetation needs to be supplemented in that 50-foot zone, that the work was done ahead of schedule, let's call it?
My question would be, Mr. Webby, do we know what was cleared early?
Well, I think it's like Brandon said, is the vegetation that's left, I think is the same that was put in bed.
Right, and you had mentioned a lot is weedy area, so before I made a decision, I wanted to clarify if it was just a weedy area or more of what Brandon had said.
It was there.
Oh, excuse me. Okay. Ed, any?
About the invasive plants, do you recommend that we have them remove it, or leave as is.
I'm always a fan of eradicating invasive plants as a mitigative measure.
Yeah.
The thing about that's an investment, because you can't just cut it down and expect the job to be done. You have to go back for at least 3 years to make sure that you get it all and it goes away and stays away. So there's a bit of an investment associated with invasive plants. There's still an investment associated with planting, new vegetation as well. There's usually a 2-year performance standard regarding survivability. So either way, you get an investment in time.
Okay, I do have one question. The restoration plan that was presented did not include any woody vegetation. I think there was some discussion about seeds that were going to be put in, some sort of planting of seeds.
We had just proposed conservation mix, that's correct.
Okay, which would have been tilling in conservation mix in the present soils.
Yes.
Okay, with no woody vegetation that would have been removed.
We would
Okay.
allow whatever woody vegetation wants to come back to that to just come back.
Okay, unless
Red
the,
maples first,
unless the
little pines or whatever.
So I guess the question of the commission is, their plan doesn't seem to be suitable at this point because you've got so much vegetation. Let me just finish. So should we be looking for some woody vegetation or trees so that they don't have to go back in there, dig up everything that's there? Trees of the species that are typical of that area, which would be the cherry pine or maple. I don't know which which is going to be the easiest or least expensive.
Doesn't matter.
Okay, so do you think that that would be the appropriate course of action versus having to go out there and till it?
Well, the question is, what was the nature of that 50-foot zone before?
So, can we go back to
Yeah.
Tim answering what he cleared?
Okay, if he wants to get up, okay, want to get up to speaker. You
Yeah,
you got a
sure.
comment?
Yeah, so obviously Tim
Yeah.
Fabrowski. So I have a letter right from the woman who sold the property, Andrea Hay. That property was a flower farm and was full of greenhouses and what have you for over 100 years. It wasn't full of hardwoods. And she wrote a letter stating that what's growing back now, naturally, is what's been there her entire life. So that answers that. And, if I could add, my land cleaner, he mow cuts. So that's why the vegetation is so strong coming back, because the thatch is still there, and I have all the photos to show. In 2 months, it's 5 feet high. I can show you photos, it's solid, you cannot see the soil, it's solid. That doesn't just happen. That's hundreds of years of vegetation. And thank you very much for coming out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
How about that?
So the question for the commission is, he did go in, cut it down. What is the most practical plan for more vegetation to make sure no one else goes in there to clean it out? It would be some sort of a woody type of tree. That's probably going to be the less intrusive.
If that's the commission's pleasure. Those 3 species I mentioned are the most common in the immediate surrounding area. If you decide to go that route, I think that 25 feet on center is a good spacing, because that allows them to grow up, over a 20-30 year period and crown out adequately. And then there's the question of whether or not you think any understory needs to be supplemented, like shrubs that are in the area as well. And if you go that route, the 2 species that I saw that were most common were high bush blueberry and arrowwood. And those, I think if you required that, 15 feet on center is a good spacing for those.
Disturbance line, Mr. Webber, can you just point out how much of a disturbance line is there? You added some post and rail fence. I haven't seen the plan, so how much post and rail fence did you add?
Well, we added quite a bit, almost from here, almost all the way to the property line. So it's about 150 feet.
Okay. So if you've got 150 feet of area with some sort of trees every 25 feet, or potentially some high bush blueberries in between those. Is that,
Right, I think at 25-foot separation, we're talking 4 trees. 4, 6, yeah, you want to start in 25 feet.
so,
Think about,
We're
think
talking
about
50 feet, so if you put it in the center.
The thing about this plan is it does not show the current tree line, but I do know that it's somewhere down around the wetland boundary here.
okay, yeah, I would agree with that.
I found flag A3 right at the new tree line, and flags A1 and 2 I could not find, because my opinion is they probably got cut down with
Okay.
whatever vegetation was there.
Okay, but I think the line can't be that much further off. I think his line there, we should be okay. So the question now is what should be required for replanting because they chewed everything up? Are we looking at half a dozen trees, or are we looking at sweet blueberry bushes in between those? And I think somebody should tell the commission what they want to do. You want to plant, he doesn't want to plant. I did see the photographs. The vegetation did come back up. We've had a wet season, so I'm not inclined to say go in and mow everything up to plant, a wetlands.
No, we don't want wetlands in there.
Well, not a wetlands, but any sort of seeds. Would you agree, Brandon? So I think that we need to do is come up with what you propose to do in there.
I'd personally like to see a mix, but I'd like to see the blueberries
Blueberry.
replaced. I'm not necessarily on board with replacing the hardwood, the cottonwood, the maples, the black cherries, the pines, but where we are right near the wetlands, the blueberries that potentially were taken down feed the wildlife and everything else, and they root, and they'll be good for you in the future for the wetland not to encroach even further, because they reroot and they do all that fancy stuff. So I personally like to see blueberries replanted.
I like that.
Through the chair,
Yes, sir.
if that's your wish,
Mhm.
it's not a bad one. But based on my experience, if you can plant 100 blueberries, but if you don't do anything about the invasive species like the bittersweet vine and the buckthorn, they're going to take over on their own, and they're going to shade out the blueberries. So my recommendation is go with the blueberries, but also have an invasive species control plan in place at the same time over like 2 or 3 year period.
Would you be against
Is
doing
that-
the invasive species control plan and removing the invasive species?
So that's,
You want, you're gonna, maybe we should ask Mr. Webby on that or whatever.
Well, I have a quick letter from the former owner of the property. It's about 3 sentences long, if I could read it
Yep.
for the board. It says, "To whom it may concern, my name is Andrea Hay. My family owned Old Man's Farm, located at 111 Palmer Mill Road for over 75 years. Until recently, we sold the land to Tim Nebraska. He's clearing the land to build new homes. I still lived in 111 Palmer Mill when he purchased the land. I watched him clear the land. While clearing, I watched him pull out a ton of debris. This included tractors, toilets, steel fencing, water heaters, furnaces, and more. It was also a relief that they removed dangerous trees from along the road and ones that had hung over my neighbor's yard that I had worried about for many years. I visit my old home frequently and can see that the plants are growing back right now. In all the years I've lived there, the plants that are growing back are the same as what has always been there, and it looks to be doing very well. The nostalgia of Old Man Farm is back to its glory. The surrounding neighbors and I are so happy to see how clean everything looks again." So I just wanted to get that, her statement in there.
Okay, the question was, why don't you address that question? Did they want to plant?
So blueberries, I think the concern is that blueberries, I think, are a wetland species, so the concern would be if this ground is wet enough to support the blueberries, and that's the concern is.
because, like I said, yeah.
Okay, hold on a second.
So
Now,
my
Dixon-
question was, though,
Who are you addressing
are
to?
you,
Okay.
attorney or
Okay.
himself, or Mr. Webby, whomever in the group has the best answer, are you against removing the invasive species?
Can I speak?
Yes.
Okay, so the honeysuckle is rampant over there, and there's another one called I think it's black olive, something like that, is that right?
Autumn olive.
Autumn olive, okay. So I went through the property, you were there as well, with Margaret from your office, and she spoke the same thing. She's like, you can go in there to take that out. It's loaded in the wetlands, but we never actually went into the wetlands. This is the buffer zone. The buffer zone didn't have any blueberries. It was just honeysuckle wrapped around, it looks like rope. And if you look at some photos right here, I'll show you. If you look in the background, you can still see it growing all through the trees. It's all still in there. We're only in the buffer zone, but if you look at these photos, that's as of today. It's almost 5 feet tall and you can't see 1 inch of soil. There was never any blueberries. If you put something in there, if you go to the bylaws, it says, if you go into a buffer zone, you can't change the elevation, you can't change the species, you can't change drainage, you can't create destruction. There's no destruction because it grew right back in less than 3 months. Elevation is the same. Vegetation is the same. All we did was what is allowed. You can take out invasive shrubs, which we did, and we took out debris. When I say debris, we filled a dumpster with tractors, toilets, water heaters, and then we took down rotted trees that are all along the street. In the center, it was just brush, like brush. You couldn't even walk through it. And Joe Webby remembers when they tried to do a perk test, they couldn't even get a machine in there. It was just like rope, and that's the honeysuckle. So if you want me to go into the wetlands to get the invasive honeysuckle and that, I call it black olive, I would literally be in the wetlands. We never went in the wetlands. We're in the buffer. We're before the wetlands. So if you put a wetland plant before it's wet, it won't live. Not to mention the organic shrubs are just going to choke that out because it's already 5 feet tall. So you're going to put a baby in there, it's just going to get sucked up.
Okay, but are you willing to remove the invasive species that are not in the wetlands?
We have already. That's what we did.
But we're gonna want the invasive control plan and you to do it for a good 3 years. And
Yeah.
as Brendan has said, it's going to be an investment.
Yeah, we could, I'll babysit, I only live right down the street, I live in this town, and I built a subdivision walking distance from there. And it's like, there's nothing to gain, I'm not just saying this, there's nothing for us to gain doing this. We did this for, there's a woman over here that's gonna be living there. We wanted to clean the property, so we mulch cut to clean it. We had to take out tons of trash and then all the vines and everything else. So if we were to put it back the way it was, I would have to go get a dumpster and bring it and dump it. And then as far as hardwoods, there was no hardwoods. The only hardwoods that were out there were some broken over cherries and some scrub pines and stuff like that. And everyone in that neighborhood can tell you exactly what was there because they've seen it and they applaud it. They all sat out there and loved it, and they still do. The only one who's upset is the board because I didn't notify anyone that we were cleaning it. And yeah, we did go rambunctious, we were right in there because there's a reason. The potential buyer over here, she's losing her lease. She needs to get into a house. So yeah, we did jump the gun. We're like, we gotta go, we gotta get her in there before December. Her lease is up. So we did go after it. Typically, I'd take my time, go to Florida for the winter. But we're trying to get her into a house. So that's the reasoning behind it. And again, there was nothing to gain by going into a buffer zone.
I understand that, but that could have been addressed to the board too, and maybe asked us to move more timely and move the plan forward.
No,
I mean,
get it.
I understand it, I'm sympathetic, however, there's still bylaws and regulations and policies to follow.
Right. A lot of it comes to is communication, like when I have my cleaning guys there, right? So the brush cutters, because we couldn't even get into the property. So when the brush cutters go in, and of course he's a super nice guy, Brendan, local guy, same thing. He's in there cleaning. I'm like, we can't go into the wetlands. And we flagged them, so we knew where they were, and we never went into the wetlands. But I don't think he understood that we have to have like a buffer. So he was like, oh, Tim, I cleaned this, I got this, and he did a great job. But again, he doesn't have an excavator, he has a mower, it's a brush mower, it looks like a big saw blade, it grinds it up. But he also took all the rubbish out, we never would have knew it was there. So, I mean, yeah, there's damage, but it grew back twice as strong. And we have the previous owner telling us that it's the same vegetation. You know what I mean? So, I mean, you weigh it out. Okay, we put up a split rail fence, we put posting, tells people you're entering into a wetlands. What's the damage? You know what I mean? I think it grew back better, and we cleaned the yard.
This is a
Yeah, I'll set
catch
this
22.
aside.
I don't know. Any more questions?
I think so.
That good?
Well, I do have one
What do
question.
you got?
You did realize that when you went in at a cut, that you were in the buffer zone?
I wasn't even there.
Okay, all right, so that's fine. So, I
Yeah.
mean, and you're familiar with conservation, you built a subdivision,
Mhm.
so you knew you should have come to the commission, whether there's junk in there, there's trash, just get permission to come in to do it. That's my only point. Just gonna make a suggestion that maybe potentially Brendan and Mr. Webby should get together and come up with some sort of a planting schedule. You're gonna have to plant something, so it's just a matter of what. You've got some conversation about blueberry bushes, you got the invasive species issues. If you wanna put your heads together and come up with a plan that makes everybody happy, then I think the commission will be happy.
And for me, it can be any type of food plant, guys. Like anything that's on the list that'll work there, I'm all for.
Yeah.
So it doesn't
Any kind of
have to be a
fruit?
blueberry.
No.
Anything that will feed, Brendan and Mr. Webby would be able to give you a nice long list. DAR has a fantastic book on it, what's allowed, what's not, in bounded areas and things, so there's a lot of options there.
So we can take the original plan they submitted, not use that plan, and I think you should come up with a plan. And you can consult with the review. Obviously, once he's paid, come up with a plan that I think is gonna be suitable, that he's gonna recommend, and we're gonna be comfortable with, but I think you got the pulse that you're gonna have to plant something in it.
So,
So,
if I understand correctly, and I'm curious how you and Ed feel too, that we'd be looking for the planting schedule and an invasive control species plan for the next meeting, along with an update on all the financials that the board doesn't handle, but obviously that need to be addressed.
We'll have to call in for an audit on that. And I'm just trying to figure out, not to take everyone's time, there was the things to go over. But again, you put back what was there. If it wasn't there, we're putting in something that wasn't, and the bylaw says not to change the vegetation, but that's exactly what we'd be doing. But I'll do it if that's what you want.
Do you have photos of what was there prior to
I have the woman
cutting
who's
in?
lived there for 100 years.
Right.
She's been there for 75 years.
I guess the ball's in your court. If you wanna give it a few minutes and you guys discuss it and come up with
Yeah.
some sort of a plan, that's up to you. But we do need some direction, or if you want us to close the hearing, we can close the hearing, but I think you know what the sentiment is, so, it's your call.
Okay, well, let me converse with my group.
Okay, you wanna continue it just for another hour or so, cause we're gonna be tied up? Or do you wanna continue it and come up with a planning schedule for next week?
You gonna continue to the next one, or? Okay, we'll try to figure it out now. We'll get an hour?
Okay.
Okay.
Alright.
Joe's like, all right.
Do we have to make a motion to continue it?
No, they're only gonna, we're not an official continuance.
Okay.
Next item on the agenda is going to be 265 on Ponce Street. It's a continued stormwater management hearing.
Mr. Chairman, would you mind
Yes.
if I did 266 first?
I don't have a problem with
Back
that.
to back. I think there was more questions on that one.
Okay. Kim, did you get
There's
this?
the large copies of the plans of what I emailed
Okay.
yesterday.
Keep them away from
No, I'm just gonna,
the plans. You hear it on the, when they're doing the tape, all you hear is the paper shuffle.
Well, that, thank you.
just gonna need 5 minutes until Ms. King comes back.
Sure, no problem.
Did we have a package? Did you receive this?
I think so, in the email.
Okay.
Yeah, I did see.
We don't have packages. I'm gonna give this back to him.
This is the letter.
Yep.
$266, okay. Dave, do you have soil logs on that one?
Yeah, they're in the plans.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can
all
you
the-
bring
all the
soil logs
test
up? Any particular test pits, can you bring them up if we need?
pits. Yeah.
This is 266.
Yeah, 266, yep.
That's the small peach farm. That's the peach.
No, that's 266 across the street, isn't it?
266 is Peach Farm.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Small one, west side.
Okay, that's fine. Dave, we're ready for you.
Sure. Good evening, David Eastridge, Lundgren Development, here to discuss the stormwater permit for 266 Monpont Street.
Hold on a second, they gotta quiet down. They gotta quiet down.
So I apologize, I wasn't at the previous hearing, I was on vacation, but my cohorts relayed notes to me. There were kind of three main issues that reached my ear regarding 266. And I sent a letter yesterday, kind of with a written response on these matters. So there was a request for a traffic management plan, which isn't really a technical stormwater matter, but nonetheless, there was concern about particularly when trucks were coming to and from the site, whether they would be parked in the street, disturbing traffic and that sort of thing. So this gets into kind of construction management, scheduling and the like. But the specific request was to put together a plan showing proposed signage, particularly no parking signage, that we would place along Montpont Street. So this plan shows kind of these red dots, and in each one of these locations there would be a no parking and no standing sign, because that's really the issue. The trucks aren't going to park out there forever, but they'll probably wait there. So trying to get them moving. And then also I find with this, whenever you tell someone not to do something, you want to tell them what you want them to do. So it kind of combines with construction entry signs, which are these orange squares there that specifically say the address, this is the construction entry. So you can get the trucks off the street as quickly as possible. Once we're up and running, oops, sorry. We have full-time construction supervision there, and usually it's a staff of about 5 folks, and folks that can actually help direct traffic if it's an issue. So this is our construction entrance as shown on all the plans. So we'll put a construction entry sign adjacent to that. This is going to be our preliminary construction entrance across the street. That is where the existing driveway is for the old house and garage that was located on that property before it burned down, and it was also demoed. So that's where we're going to start, and then once we build the road in to 265, which goes in right here, we'll move the construction entrance to here. This is the site that's destined to be the senior center for the town. So this location is coincident where the driveway will be for that senior center. So whoever builds the senior center, whether it's us or someone else that you choose, can get double use out of that construction entrance in the future. So that's essentially the traffic management plan. Again, in my letter, so I sent this to Chief Chavez as well, and I understand he's on vacation, but when we get into the nitty-gritty of police details and specifics and having to get into the road for connections and the like, we'll coordinate on a pretty much daily basis when we get into those types of situations, and to schedule any police details that are necessary. So that's kind of the response on the traffic management plan.
Okay, I think, is everybody comfortable with that?
Yeah.
But that will go in front of the planning board too?
No.
Ma'am, hold on. Okay. If you got a question, through the chair, but you're gonna have to go to the mic. So what I'd like to do is, if you got some questions, before he finishes this, then I'll get you up. Because I think he's gonna move to the next screen. So if you have a particular question on this, feel free. Just come up, identify yourself, just name and address, and we'll be fine.
Oh, you want to do?
Yeah, just go back to I'd like to finish that, Dave, and
Sure.
then go back to the microphone. No,
Yeah, okay.
I know.
I'm new at this.
Okay,
Is it on?
it should be.
Joanne Rosen from C111 Lyden Lane. I was just asking if this signage was gonna go in front of the planning board too, because I don't know if it's conservation stuff.
So we went through planning board hearings for both sites, and they never asked for this, so no.
Okay.
And again, really, this is just for
Just to
this is traffic safety.
Yeah,
So this
this-
is highway and police.
Yeah.
It doesn't belong.
This
to
is highway and
conservation
police,
in the first place.
just for
Yeah.
him, if I can just explain. I have spoken with Chief Chavez, because I put him on notice that this particular project, with 15,000 cubic yards of dirt, is about 750 trucks. So it's this commission's concern, even though it might not be in their purview, to make sure that we're not gonna have a traffic issue, that trucks aren't gonna be parking on Route 58, and we asked them to come up with a plan, which we'll forward to Chief Chavez, and he'll approve that. Everything, to me, looks pretty good, other than, I think, no parking signs should be a little further south, but that's up for the chief to decide.
Yeah, I was uncomfortable placing
Fine.
signs in front of
Okay.
a butter's property, so, but if.
I just want to point out that I did reach out to Highway on this particular one, but he's on vacation. So I'll reach out to him because he'll have to approve. I also made some query with one of the members of the Traffic Commission just to make sure that you can do that. But okay.
Okay.
If you don't mind going on to the next screen.
Sure, just as an FYI, we're about to submit next week our plan that relates to the crosswalk and signalization to the select board, because as they are the highway commissioners, I believe. So that was recommended by the traffic safety committee. So if there's something else we want to feather into that process, I'd be more than willing to. Okay, one of the other issues that was brought up was snow storage, and the commission shared with us a kind of pamphlet, if you will, snow disposal guidance from the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. So we reviewed that document, and basically it's a guide for helping municipalities and businesses select snow storage sites when it's gonna have to get hauled. So it's really meant for kind of a bigger scale situation than this, but it lays out kind of a nice hierarchy of kind of good, better, best locations for storing snow, all to help prevent environmentally sensitive areas. So we developed a snow storage plan. So this is 265 Montponset. So this plan is where, if we have to, if we get snows to a level where we actually have to haul snow and remove it from 266 located here, these are locations that are shown kind of by order of priority where we could deposit the snow on 265. So so we've kind of picked it in order. So this one here, the snow storage in the paved area, so this is really the best location. And the reason why it's the best is because it flows through the full treatment train of catch basins with deep sumps, then to the stormwater with the forebays and all that type of stuff. So it's areas that are paved but not on top of catch basins are really the best. So that's our first priority. This site has 14 extra spaces beyond what's required by zoning, and all the handicap access to the building is from the rear. So again, they're kind of surplus spaces. And again, this is kind of a, let's say, extreme event when you're starting to have to haul snow. So that's kind of the first area. The second areas are these blue areas, which are on what will be basically meadow and outside of not only the 50-foot, but the 100-foot buffer. So the DEP recommendations were to stay at least 50 feet away from waterways and wetlands, and these areas are a full 100 feet. The third area that we've identified is right here. Again, that's the third in the list of priorities. So this is adjacent to our detention basin. So it's not quite as good as the other ones because it doesn't flow through 100 feet of vegetation, it doesn't flow through the catch basins, but it does flow into the stormwater management basin. And as part of our operation and maintenance plan, it's a requirement to remove sediment from that anyways. So we will be going after that, usually annually, to remove any sediment that gets accumulated in there from the snow storage. So this, all three areas are satisfactory relative to the DEP memo. And this also does not take all of the area on 265 that's available for snow storage. You still have areas around here and here, this area here, along here, so we didn't take up kind of all the areas for 266, recognizing that 265 is still going to have snow there as well. So that's a question.
Hold on. Okay.
So that's the again, snow storage plan that we came up with.
Okay. Any questions from the... One question I have, and then I'll go to the audience, is that you did very extensive calculations for runoff. Do we need to be concerned with the additional amount of snow runoff with capacity to the basins?
So runoff from snow melt is quite slow when you're comparing it to 10, 100-year, type of storm event. So it's not going to contribute significantly to, stormwater runoff within this site. Plus, the stuff would be located here and here kind of flows into the wetlands after it flows through 100 feet of vegetation and is, separate from the, let's say, the stormwater path.
What I'm going to do is ask the commission, because based on the original plan, he had snow storage on 266. And
Correct.
then, but that was in the wrong place.
We were asked to take it off because it was located on top
So,
of
and
septic.
this can probably be done with a phone call. I just want to make sure that Pat Brennan, I don't know if he was part of this conversation, he reviewed all the stormwater calculations. And I know in most of these cases, you've exceeded the requirements. So I don't know that that's a major issue.
As part of the stormwater management calcs, there's really no consideration for snow melt.
Correct. All right. I have a
So
gentleman.
It's not part of the kind of required formulas. if
Okay,
you will.
I'm gonna turn it over to the audience.
Do I vote that?
Yes, sir. Just identify yourself, name and address for the record.
So my name is Bruce Minor. I live at C2-5 Leiden Lane, the condominium complex, just north of 265. So I'm an original owner. I've been there over 40 years.
Okay, Mr. Minor, just hold on 1 second. We are currently talking primarily about across the street, the Peach Farm.
Well, but he just referenced 265.
Correct, so just so that
This is,
it's where the snow is gonna go, so if you,
Exactly.
yeah, if you've got concerns on this particular one, we're gonna address that next.
okay.
So-
But I think this is what I want to talk about right now. So, we've had water table problems, high water table problems in our neighborhood since day one. Right now, our condos go for $300,000 to $330,000 each, which blows my mind, but that's what they go for. That makes our neighborhood somewhere between a $35 and $40 million neighborhood. My concern is that we have a high water table, and now they want to take snow from across the street and put it right next to us to melt. It just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, something I already want to talk about on the other one is that it's 72 units at 100,000 gallons a year. I mean, our water bills are based on 50,000 gallons every 6 months. 100,000 gallons a year times 72 units is like 7.2 million gallons a year that's gonna go into the ground, out of faucets, tubs, laundry, whatever, into the ground, right next to us. Again, we have a high water table. Now we're talking about putting snow in right next to us to melt in that same area. I mean, if something goes wrong with this, and I don't know if there's been a study done on the 7 to 8 million gallons that's gonna go from the water tower into the ground right next to us, but if something goes wrong with this, and the town okays this, I'm assuming the town is gonna be liable. And that creates a big problem. So I have issues with the snow being moved here, but I also think that the town, is some board, I addressed the planning board with this the other night, some board in the town should require that the builder puts a fund, creates a fund that the town controls, so that if we do end up with a big problem in our neighborhood, the money is there to take care of it.
Okay.
Okay?
If you'd like, I'll address just briefly, this is never brief. There's been extensive studies on the groundwater in that area. The groundwater, the surface groundwater travels in a southeast pattern down towards Turkey Swamp. I personally have looked at this plan extensively. I've looked at modeling, and we can go back to the modeling that's on these plans. And I've looked at modeling at your facility, and at the liquor store, okay, and all the adjacent properties. And modeling is the highest most point that groundwater can go. Unfortunately, your facility, you've had flooding there for years. It was built a little too low. So you've had this piping in there that drains off some of the water. And there was some folks in earlier that everybody's got sump pumps. But the calculations they've done account for the pervious areas, the impervious areas. And with the amount of basin that they're creating, that based on the scientific principles, it meets the requirements. And it's above the modeling, and there is a cushion between modeling, which is an ancient stain in the soil, which is the highest that it can go, and actual groundwater. So there is a sort of a cushion there.
So when was all this testing done on the groundwater? For this project, or?
It's very extensive. This particular project, and I reviewed septic plans for the half a dozen septic systems that were done in your facility. The one was done at the liquor store, the one that was done at the the housing. And I looked at ground elevations and I looked at modeling elevations. And they're reasonably close. There are some areas where the modeling is a little bit lower. But unfortunately, I think the commission has to look at it from a scientific point. Does this meet the requirements that the feds have established for stormwater management? Is there a fund available? No. I don't see anything in our jurisdiction that would allow us to require a fund to be established if you had some additional flooding. But based on this plan that's been extensively reviewed, any excess surface water should be traveling down to where it says snow storage. That's the natural way for it to go.
Okay. It would stand to reason that if we already have some pumps, and we'll say a third of the units in that project that I live in have water in the summer and the spring, that 8 million gallons that leave that tank and go into the ground next door to us, and that whatever the snow is, I mean, some years, we had a year not long ago, it was 102 inches of snow. It's gotta make a difference. It's gotta make it worse, right?
I don't agree, only because
I don't see how it could not have some kind of effect.
the impact is greater on the catch basins than it is on the snow. It's only my opinion. I mean, you can,
Okay.
we can ask, we can ask the professionals, but we've had the professional review it. I don't know that we've asked them, because it's just come in to review the amount of snow that's coming in, but I would have to agree that the impact of placing that snow near a potential basin is minimal. That's just my opinion.
It would seem to me as though it's gonna have some kind of effect, and I would urge, I'm gonna write a letter, I'm gonna put this in writing and send it to every board in the town. But I would urge people on the boards to think about it, talk to other boards, and maybe come up with a plan where there can be money for this. I mean, if the place gets built and nothing happens for 10 years, okay, it goes back, something like that. But I can't imagine it's not gonna have an effect on our neighborhood.
Unfortunately, we don't have the authority on the stormwater management. We have that authority.
That's what the planning board also told me.
We have to follow the laws. We just can't make them
Who
up.
does have the authority?
Probably the selectmen.
Well, if this was under subdivision control, then the planning board, it's not a subdivision control because it's a Form A. Under conservation, under our conservation umbrella, if we felt as though that something might not work that they propose, whether it be the replication area or the amount of capacity, then we could require a bond. That door is already closed. All we're doing now is trying to make sure that the engineers and the scientists that have developed these stormwater standards, we're following them. That's our goal.
So it seemed to me it would be in the best interest of the town to try to create a bond or a fund to take care of this. I'm just pointing this out, this is my opinion. Because if things go bad, we have 115, if somebody's wrong, we have 115 homeowners that are gonna be looking for some kind of fix, some kind of help from the town.
I just want to point out, I think that's probably a 60-inch scale, all right, correct, Dave? So the retention pond, which would be more intrusive to you guys, is probably 150 feet away from the property line.
Yeah, 120.
And your snow storage areas are 100 plus.
Mr. Chairman, I actually have slides that speak specifically to this as part of the 265 presentation.
Okay.
If that would,
Okay. So,
Well, you say that, but you're talking about taking snow from 266 and putting it in 265. So how does that not affect it?
Okay.
So
Okay.
I have a question, Mr. Chair. My question would be, would the board have an authority for security documents? We may not be able to do a bond or other things, but in 16414, we can do security or a security document, but we've never done them before, so I don't know if it would be appropriate for this applicant, or if it's something that we may be able to investigate and research and deliver an answer at the next meeting.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you no, because I did the research, and you'll see the letter from council on another matter. 16410 is wetlands protection. We are now working under stormwater. So we've got another set of guidelines that we're following. I have not seen anything in stormwater that allows us the authority to require a bond. It's the emphasis in the requirement that the engineers or the applicants provide us the scientific proof, and this is all science.
Now, you
That's,
just said
let me just
engineers
finish,
are the
sir. Yeah, yes. So again, to answer your question, there's nothing in stormwater that I've seen that allows us to do that. Again, 16410 is wetlands, so go ahead, sir.
You just said that engineers for the applicant. So does the town have their own engineers?
Very extensively, yes. This has been reviewed by our engineer, and he had lots of comments, and we got to say which one here. He's had comments, they've addressed all the comments.
Okay. However, tonight, moving snow across the street to within 150 feet of us is new, starting tonight, right?
Correct.
None of these people have heard about this,
Correct.
so this is new, okay?
Okay. Yes, sir. Go ahead. No, Dave, we got another one from the audience.
Chris Winowitz, 129 Circuit Street.
Chris, let me just, Dave, at this point, we're on 266, but this plan shows 265, just for clarity. So if you want to just address the snow, anything else we'll address when you open the next meeting.
What amount of snow at 266 Mopons that triggers to move it across the street to 265? I mean, does a snow contractor do 2 swipes of the parking lot and that's too much snow moving across? And who enforces that? And I guess the last question is, go guess that it'll be bid out to different snow contractors over the years to take care of the property. If a different contractor starts piling snow on 266 and doesn't transport it,
I'm gonna have you narrow, we're gonna narrow that down. I'm gonna have him ask you the answer to the first question. Whoever does the snow removal is gonna be, we don't know who that is. So, I know the answer to your question, but Dave, you're gonna have to answer that. How much, at what point is snow from 266 going over to 265?
Essentially when it's in the way. So if you can't maintain adequate width of your drive aisles for access of safety equipment, and you can't get to the pedestrian doors that you need to get to, you haul it away. It's as simple as that.
Chris, my experience, if they get 2 inches of snow, they're hauling it across the street.
my other
Only
question,
personal opinion.
just if they don't haul it away, would it overflow the drainage system on 266
No,
into the properties out back?
no. All that is in consideration when you're doing all your drainage calcs. I don't want to.
Are there any other questions for me regarding snow storage?
Anything else? Anybody from the audience on snow storage?
Let me ask a question.
Amy Troop, 10 Hillside Ave. I'm going to ask to say that if the conservation has already done an order of conditions and now we're putting snow on 265, I would think that that order of conditions would need to be reopened due to the fact that we're adding water to the site.
Okay.
after that is closed. So therefore, we would need to reopen and recalculate that because it is not included in the order of conditions.
I'll just answer that very quickly.
Yeah.
The order of conditions was based on the retention basins and the wetlands area. The rest of the parcel, they own. So,
Well, hold on, your
Good one.
conservation.
okay.
You work for the town.
I've answered the question. The question again. Okay.
One more question. What is your name again? David, what? What is it?
Through the chairman.
What is the applicant's name?
David Estridge.
Right. Is he an engineer?
Ms. Troop.
I'm asking
We're
if he's an
talking about
engineer.
snow storage.
I'm asking if he's an engineer.
He's a partner in the firm.
Okay.
Okay?
What
I'm not
firm?
gonna ask him his qualification.
firm?
He doesn't need to be, he's
I'm
here
asking
as a
as a public-
representative.
right.
Okay?
What-
He
from
doesn't,
where?
doesn't need any special qualification.
From where?
If you want to address the snow storage issue, that's what we'll address.
Okay. From where? What company is he from?
Thorndike Development.
So he's not from JDE Civil, which is the engineering firm, or PGB Engineering. Is that correct? I don't need an
Ms.
answer.
Tetris?
I know the answer.
Okay, okay, okay. Any other questions on this?
I'm just wondering if Ms. Troop's calling out a conflict of interest here and trying to bring something to light to the whole public we should all be aware of.
I have no idea.
I'm making it known to the public that any questions about engineering of any snow that has moved across the street has not been peer engineered by PGB. I don't care if it's been done by JDE. We hire PGB to do the engineering firm and engineering peer review for the town of Halifax. It has not been done. That is new tonight, correct? And that the questions that relate to engineering cannot be answered by the applicant, especially when he is not an engineer.
Okay, very good, thank you. Any other questions on the snow at this point? Because the board will have to take, so if not, you've addressed the traffic issues, you've addressed the snow removal. The other issues were siltation barrier, trees that are gonna impact one of the neighbors.
Yep, so the third item I had, and again, so there was a lot of questions, I guess, regarding the area between our parcel, again, we're going back to 266 here, which is the subject matter at the moment, and the plaza to the north, and kind of what was happening with the drainage there. And so there was questions regarding, does that site really look like that site? Is it accurate on the existing conditions plan? So we went out and topoed, all the way up to the building, and found that the grades are essentially the same, so that there's nothing different on the hydrology. And to be frank, we can't change anything over here. The water that's coming to our site from this site, and again, this is water that's coming from the off-site to our site, not the other way around. Whatever it is now is what it's going to be in the future. So I kind of wanted to make that point. This is a watershed map. So this is the existing conditions. And this shows general areas that flow in a certain direction. So this arrow kind of shows the longest travel path of anything within this watershed. This is the other watershed in the existing conditions that flows out to Montponset. Okay. So this is the proposed watershed map. So this shows that this area here is still flowing, off-site, but you'll see that that's half an acre, and that was an acre and a half. So The area that's actually flowing off-site is about a third of what it was. And again, this has all been peer reviewed by Pat Brennan. We've had 6 hearings between here and planning board that have discussed stormwater. And this hasn't changed. This map has not changed, the calculations have not changed. So there was also concern, I guess, about general surface water running to the perimeter and kind of the quality of that. So we've always shown on our plans a straw wattle surrounding the entire perimeter of the site. It's on one of the existing conditions plans here. So this little dash line is a straw wattle surrounding the perimeter of the site. In my letter, I've committed to upgrade that from a 10-inch straw wattle to an 18-inch mulch sock. It's much heavier. It kind of sticks to the ground, prevents water from flowing underneath it. So we'll put that around the perimeter of our site. It helps trap, it helps slow water. It doesn't stop water because it's still permeable, but it will greatly reduce any sediment that may leave the site. So we've shown, again, multiple times on this table. That's part of our drainage report that has been peer reviewed multiple times, how much we are reducing flow in all directions leaving our site. I'll pick one example, 25-year storm, existing conditions, 0.67 cubic feet per second, goes down to 0.32. So we're supposed to match, and we have dramatically cut off-site runoff in all directions. So I'm not sure, I may have missed some things from the previous hearing in terms of the concerns here, but I tried to address them the best I could.
Okay, one question I have is
Sure.
a little on the technical side, because you've got a lot of math, you've got a lot of science there, and a lot of people don't really understand it. By you reducing the amount of runoff, basically you've taken that runoff, isolating it, and putting it in different areas. Is that a fair assumption?
Yes.
Okay, so the fact that you're raising this 5 or 6 feet, as long as you're controlling the stormwater on the site, in essence, you're reducing the amount that's gonna go off-site.
Correct. So for example, in the existing conditions, this whole area flows offsite. In the proposed conditions, this area that falls on the garage roofs gets collected by gutters and downspouts and gets piped underground to this subsurface infiltration area. So so the water that was falling from the sky in this area and running directly to the adjacent abutter is now being redirected underground farther away from his house.
Okay. And you have, I don't know if you have any, Ms. King, if you have any questions, and this is, we discussed a lot of this at the prior hearing, so. to
No,
bring you up to
I've
speed.
watched the prior hearing,
Okay.
and I'm up to speed, and I understand it, so I personally have no question.
Okay. Ed, any questions at this point?
The main concern for me is the abutters right next
Yeah,
door.
I want to, I'll get that
Yeah.
addressed. Is there anybody in the audience who's got a question on, yes, ma'am, go ahead.
One time. Joanne Rosen, Lively. Just a little question, that straw thing that you
Wow,
mentioned, how long does that last? How many years?
Should I ask? Yes. So it's actually on the specifications that I submitted to it, and we're upgrading the straw wattle to a mulch sock. The mulch socks, I think it lasted, I want to say, 15 months to 20 months, something along those lines.
I can better answer that, because I suggested the 18-inch sock, only because it's higher, it has more capacity, and has filtering a little bit better than a straw wattle. Straw wattle was 12 inches, so my thoughts are if you've got a storm in the month of February or March where we've had some rain and frozen ground, you want to make sure that any of that water that hits it has no way to penetrate, especially disturbed soil. It'll go into that sock and it'll retain that sock. I've had great experience and I've recommended it
Okay.
to them.
So that's temporary while it's being built.
Correct.
After that, it's the regular drainage.
It disintegrates. So
Typically-
that's mostly for sediment control. It will control some flow, but it is permeable. It's not a dam, if you will. So basically it stays until we can get vegetation established so that the erosion no longer happens. But the surface flow relates to this map. And again, it's the offside flow is reduced.
Dave,
in all
I'm gonna have to
sorts.
put you up if you're gonna be any longer.
Let me repeat some of that.
Okay, please.
So, the mulch stock is an upgrade from the straw wattle. It is still permeable. It will disintegrate over time. What you need to do is maintain it until vegetation is established where we've disturbed land, so that the vegetation prevents any further erosion from occurring. So, and again, this is all kind of flat land up here. It's steep at the edges. Oop, keep doing that. But again, you're not gonna get, it's not like it's a channel or a river with high velocity flows or anything like that. But that's how it works. And the flow will be dictated kind of by this plan and the proposed conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the audience? Yes. Yep, sir.
So I'm not.
Just identify yourself, because we have somebody remotely that does the minutes.
Bruce Minor, Langley, Halifax. So I'm certainly not criticizing anybody's credentials, okay? Anybody on the board or this man here, and, well, whoever else is on. But I noticed when the guy that was working on Palm Mill Road, I don't know his name, but he was talking about vegetations and stuff, and he had his engineer with him, which is Webby, is that correct? And it seems to me as though we have a bunch of people here that may know a whole bunch about this stuff, but I don't think anybody is an engineer. And I know you guys are probably gonna vote on this tonight, and I'm just thinking that maybe this should be presented by the applicant's engineer, just a thought.
We'll note that. Okay. Any questions?
No.
Kim, you followed it. Our position here is that if we are comfortable with the presentation, we would close the hearing, and then we have 21 days to make a decision. So what we could, if the board so chooses, we can close the hearing, and then this would remain on the agenda, and we would sit down with the review engineer and come up with an order of conditions specific to stormwater, if there are no other questions.
Quick thing about the
Oh,
abutters.
I'm sorry, I did want to address that. Dave, I did want to address, we did a site walk. We spent some time in that lower corner, and the homeowners are here. I did get, I think, 1 or 2 emails regarding their situation. It's not within 100% of our purview, but I would like you to potentially address their concerns.
Okay.
Just hold on a second. Mr. Peasy,
Yeah, right.
you did send, I don't know that I got all the communications, but you have been in touch with,
Yes, he
With
did
Dave.
get back to the street.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
okay, did you want to address your concerns? I mean, you could,
I mean,
that's
sure,
probably the
I'll-
best way, so
I'll
why don't we
address
let
it,
Mr.
the best
Peasy
that I can. Yep.
address his concerns and,
Mike Peasy, 254 Mount Ponset. We are the direct abutters to this project, and it's probably going to affect me and my family more than anybody in this entire town. Our driveway abuts that area, and I guess I'll start with water issues. And we've had water issues. The water table is extremely high in this area, as other neighbors have already said. We've had springs where my leaching field pushed the water back into my septic system. And where does that end up? Into my home. So where's my guarantee that all of this water from this project right next door, 3-story apartment complex with I don't know how many bedrooms. Where's the guarantee that that's not going to affect my property?
Okay, just, I'll get you, I'll get an
Okay.
answer for you. Is there anything else? Why don't you just step back for a second?
sure.
Dave, I think, I'm gonna let you address that.
Sure. So, trying to think of how high a level to do this at. But, so essentially, the stormwater management standards that we're required to meet dictate that you can make surface runoff no worse than it currently is going off of the site. And I didn't see you there, but I was kind of speaking to you when I talked about currently the watershed is this big and it all flows to this property line. Some of it a little bit on the golf course, but mostly towards you. That's 1.5 acres of land. So in our proposed condition, there'll be this 1/2 acre of land, most of which actually flows towards the golf course up here.
Well, that property is my property. Right
Your
over
property
here.
line is
It's
here.
here.
Yeah.
And that's
So-
where it flows.
Right.
And
But
I've
once-
shown the
Mike,
pictures.
Mr. Peasy, just let him finish and.
What I'm saying is that, so this area flows off-site. Once you get to this area, that is directly abutting your land, it's 3, 10, 7 feet of land only that's flowing towards you. It's reduced as much as you could possibly do. So in this rain, instead of being on the surface, flowing to that line of trees, settling in those little low spots that are kind of on the common property line, it gets redirected underground into this area. So farther away, from your house. Also, as the chair has been alluding to, groundwater in this area goes from west to east and a little bit southerly. So you'll see we've done a gazillion test pits here, about a dozen. And we have probably 20 test pits over on 265. You can tell the groundwater slope from that. And it starts out in the 69s, go to the 68s, 66s, and it goes all the way down to 52. So groundwater-wise, you are actually flowing towards us. Surface water-wise, we're flowing towards you. We're dramatically reducing the surface water. The groundwater, we're actually, again, slightly moving that away from you, and it's going that way. So that's the best I can do in terms of explaining stormwater and groundwater and the impacts on the butters. As it relates to the plaza here, they're draining towards us on the surface. We're draining towards the common property line. So we're both going to be draining kind of right towards this line here.
I think his question was, is there any assurance that the project is not going to flood him? And I'm talking about the project. I saw the pictures of the situation he's had. It must have been after heavy rain. We walked the property, so his concern and our concern would be to make sure that nothing from this site, especially with the close proximity of the garages, is going to go onto their property.
That's not what this plan shows. It shows that this area here, that sliver, will drain onto his property. So it's not a requirement that nothing can leave the site. That's not what the standards say at all. It says that you need to make it no worse than it is today. And again, so this is, again, 1/2 acre. If you look at, so this is PDA 1C. If you look at the chart here, so this is south and west property line. So 25-year storm, existing conditions, 0.67 cubic feet per second is the peak rate of runoff in that direction. It'll now be less than half of that. So, and don't take my word for it. And whether it comes from me or JDE, doesn't make any difference because you had it peer reviewed. That's the only person that's speaking for you. And Pat Brennan has fully peer reviewed this, both for the planning board and for the Conservation Commission, and signed off on every aspect of our design.
So, I guess I don't want to answer this question. Is there a guarantee? There isn't any guarantee.
there is no
but,
guarantee.
But I think what he's saying is that instead of you having an acre that's flooding your property now or potentially flooding your property, you're going to have 7 feet. So from a scientific standpoint, and unfortunately, we got to do the science part of it. I think what he's saying is you're going to have less potential runoff from the site than you would now. There were some other issues that and I'm hoping that you can get together with Mr. Peasy.
Yeah, we've been, sorry, so we've been in communication about, I've offered a few times, some in public forums, some in private emails, to kind of talk about issues right along the perimeter. One is what gets cleared. So there's a lot of trees that are kind of right along the property line. Some are in good shape, some are in bad shape. So I've offered to basically walk the land, with the butters and say, okay, what do you want to have happen here? Some of the trees are deadish. Some of the trees might provide some screening. It's a kind of a subjective matter. So if, for example, there's some trees that are slightly on their land that they want us to take down, I'm amenable to that. We're there, we got the tree clear, it's not a big deal. So I've offered to kind of coordinate that work. There's also landscaping that was mandated by the municipal development agreement that there's a couple of small things of landscaping that were required as part of that original document. And one is plantings along that little sliver of land that I showed here. So we're required to put it in 16 arborvitae. So again, coordinating exactly where those go, whether you want something like a pine that's a little beefier, that sort of thing. Again, I'm open to all that. In terms of timing, I suggested, walking the tree line a few weeks before the tree clearer actually shows up, so the ribbons stay. And then it might make most sense to actually wait till this garage is constructed to determine exactly where the plants go and that sort of thing. So I put that in writing to him. The chair has been CC'd on that. I presented that in other public hearings.
Mr. Peasy, do you have?
Has the Board of Health approved the storm water and the wetlands and everything?
Board of Health is not approved.
It is not. Okay.
Any questions the board have? At this point. David, as we spoke,
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Where do the storm drains empty into?
I'll let him answer that. It's.
So there's a number of them on the site. So this thick black line is again kind of a watershed, and all the storm drains in that area go to this subsurface retention. There's a couple storm drains here that go into that little place, and there's 2 storm drains that this was one of the actual comments that the commission received when they solicited for comments. They wanted these catch basins right at the property line and a little berm downstream of the property line. So this area goes to that subsurface detention area that's located right there. So these are the these black lines kind of define the difference.
So this is the entrance to my driveway here?
Yep.
And my water line is actually right there. Is that going to affect my water line, for the water line that goes into my home?
No, we're staying on our land.
Anything else, Mr. Peasy?
No, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Is there?
One more question.
Go ahead, Ms. Troop.
I would like to ask if this land has been walked by ecosystems or any flaggers to make sure for the town of Halifax that what Thorndike presented as no wetlands on this property is actually true.
Okay.
So I would like an answer.
I can only tell you that the plans are submitted. They are required to notate any wetlands. They have indicated, let me finish, they have indicated that there is no wetlands.
Have you double
I
checked
have,
that?
woman, if you want me to answer, let me answer. I have walked the site with another board member, there are no wetlands.
Okay.
That answer your question?
Um,
I don't know about ecosystems, or they don't have had any part
I
of
don't
this
know why the
particular-
conservation board in the town of Halifax wouldn't double check what a corporation is putting in front of you when they're going to build up the land this much, when we're talking about all these other things. Why would you not double check for the people that you work for, the town of Halifax? And I will also state that at a planning board meeting, I was told that there was somebody that walked the property. And I would actually say, okay. So he said that this man right here, Thorndyke's representative, stated at a planning board meeting that it was walked by Ecosystems. And I would like to bring Ecosystems up to the mic to answer a question. Have you ever walked 266 Monpont Street?
It's true. We've indicated there is no wetlands. Ecosystems is not getting up. I don't know that Ecosystems did any of the work on that. I'm gonna say it wouldn't have been because there's no wetlands. So,
Well, Alan, I'm sorry, but I asked a question because it was stated, and you can't just stonewall. They're here. I'm asking, have you ever walked 266 Monpont Street?
Mr. Troop, that is an answer that's germane to the Conservation Commission,
No.
under its jurisdiction with conservation, okay?
That
We're in
is private.
we're in a different cycle with stormwater
It's
management.
not.
I think it's inappropriate, and I'm not gonna be looking for an answer. Okay, any other questions?
If you have it in writing, you'll be receiving it.
Okay, fine, thank you.
It didn't happen.
Okay. Dave, again, as I've indicated in the past, I think that this commission should, in fact, have the last look at this set of plans. The fact that the septic has not been approved is a little problematic for me. I'm going to defer that to the board. If they are comfortable with proceeding with a septic plan that's not been approved, and it's based on, if your plan is approved, then we're okay. But if your plan is not approved, and there's any changes in elevations, then those would have to be reviewed by a review engineer. So I'll let you address that, and then I'll bring it to the board.
I'll make two brief comments. So just on kind of procedure. This has been a very lengthy process and pretty unique to have so much, let's say, plans reviewed, done before an actual formal hearing is opened. So I'll make 2 points. One, as part of your regs, you're required to notify like 4 different entities: police, building inspector, and one of them is Board of Health. So that was done first week of June, and the Board of Health made comments. So that was, 6 weeks ago now? No, 10 weeks ago now. So the Board of Health was asked to give comments, they provided comments. And so I'm, again, kind of questioning why we're waiting for the Board of Health again. Also, it's very appropriate for boards to condition their approval on other things occurring in the future, such as the Board of Health issuing their permit. So my request is that a vote is taken and, with a condition that the Board of Health issue their sewage disposal permit.
I'm not against his suggestion. This board has done it in the past. I don't know how Ed and yourself feel about it, voting to close the hearing and with the conditions of that all the requirements from the other boards are in place and approved before we actually issue and give it to you in hand.
I think what I'll do is we'll take a vote, and then we'll discuss that part of it, and then we'll finish with that vote. So if you
So
want to make...
take a vote to close the hearing then,
Well,
because of that?
No, let's take a, no, if we can't close the hearing, if we're gonna continue it, we can't close it. If we close it, we're done. So I'd be looking for a motion to continue for discussion purposes.
I'll make a motion to continue 265 and 266 Monpont Street.
No,
Just the one.
266.
Let's talk about it.
Okay.
Make a motion for 266 Monpont Street to be continued for discussion purposes and for the purposes of other boards'
Well,
decisions.
okay, I'm gonna actually just revise your motion. You're gonna make a motion to continue it, and then I'll look for a second for discussion only.
I'll make a motion to continue the hearing for 266 Monpont.
I'll second the motion
For discussion.
for discussion.
Okay. I'm just gonna give you my opinion again, because, I mean, this is a new one for me, stormwater management. I don't know that you guys have sat on any, you know, it's a relatively new bylaw. This is a very large project. I do not like the idea that someone else, one of the other departments, is gonna have to oversee a decision that we make. As part of the conditions that we're gonna place on them, there's going to be some oversight in the construction, and then there's gonna be some oversight and some longevity as far as inspection in the basins. Who do we put the emphasis on? Do we put it the building inspector? Do we put it on the health agent? That's my only concern. I'm sorry, sir, we're in the middle of a vote, so, Ed? No, it's okay, let him, he can, and then we'll just take a vote, and then we'll go to the next step.
I
So,
don't know, I like what Kim said earlier, if we put orders of conditions attached to it, like we've done in most projects, I think,
Okay.
many projects.
And hopefully we'll hire a conservation agent and all the
Of course.
further inspections will fall on conservation and not another department.
unfortunately, conservation agent doesn't do stormwater. That's his point. But anyways, okay, so we have a motion to continue and a second for discussion purposes. So if we're going to close the hearing, then I need a vote not to continue. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of continuing the hearing, say aye. So that would be me, aye. So it's going to be 1-2. So now that passed, that fails. So now I would be looking for a motion to close the hearing on 266 on Ponce Street as far as the stormwater. Somebody want to make that motion? Or I'll make the motion? I'll make a motion that we close the hearing on
260.
on 266 on Ponce Street. That's the Peach Farm. We're gonna close that hearing regarding stormwater management. I'll make the motion. Do I have a second?
With conditions.
Okay, the process is a little
To
different
close the
than
hearing
conservation.
first,
We have to close the hearing,
Yeah.
okay? And then we have 21 days to make a decision. So this will go back on the agenda for next week. We'll have any potential conditions that stormwater review. He has agreed to come up with some conditions for us. We'll take those, see if we need to add anything on, and then we have 21 days to issue our approval. So this closes the hearing. Do we go into a condition phase?
I'll make a motion to close the hearing for 266 Monpont Street.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Dave, just so that we're gonna close that, and we have 21 days to issue an order of conditions. Okay. Want to go to the next one?
Sure.
I'm gonna take a quick break. Dave, it's your done. This was,
sorry.
okay, this was
You said you're
continued.
I didn't really get that.
No, this was continued. The review specialist was here last week. They addressed all of the concerns that the commission had. Ms. King, you weren't here, so if you had any questions,
I don't, I also caught up on this one. 105 Palmer Mill, we had given them an hour. They're still waiting in.
they're gonna have to wait.
Okay, just,
Yeah, so I don't have a real presentation on this. We've kind of done it in the past, but I'm happy to answer any questions the commission might have.
No, we continued it, and I think we continued it for the same reason, is that you didn't have a septic approval. So, at this point, we don't know, or maybe you can shed some light on is the septic system going to be as proposed? Is there gonna be any elevation changes?
Yeah. So we had, let's say, our biggest response to comment, our biggest comment of concern was addressed today. So in this case, we have not submitted revised septic plans. I also want to note there's a set of plans that detail the septic system, and then there's the site plans that have all the stormwater information on it. So let's put it this way, an invert to a tank underground can change without these plans changing. Because it just references, the civil plans reference the septic plan. So I just wanted to kind of explain that. So on this one, again, I think all the stormwater matters have been issued. The Board of Health has not issued their disposal permit yet. On that one, we are, I'd say, a couple weeks behind where 266 is in terms of formally responding to those comments. We got the green light today on the one that I was worried about, and then so we know how to respond. So that was a little muddled, but that's the status. So let me cut to the chase on this one. I'm fine getting a continuance on this one.
You're gonna request a continuance?
Yeah, that's fine, because the Board of Health is less far along.
Okay.
So in the 266, the plans that, all sets of plans reflected all the comments from the Board of Health. So in this case, we have not yet hit that step. So we anticipate doing that in the next few days.
Okay.
But I'm fine having a
Okay.
continuance. on
Will you
266.
provide the office with a written
Sure.
request for
Request.
continuance? Okay. We have a request for continuance.
I would
Anything
like,
else?
if there's outstanding issues though, from
None
the
that I
commission.
know of, but we're not closing the hearing, so
Yep.
if we have any additional public input, because we've had people that weren't here at the first meeting that are here now, we can address them then. And I think we should address them again, my opinion is, with a full plan. And I think that gives us a better opportunity.
Okay.
So, we have a request for continuance. Does
Put a
someone,
motion that we continue 265 Monpont Street.
do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, 3-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm gonna take just a quick break, and then we're gonna go into the, unfortunately, we're gonna go into 111 River Street, unless they're real fast. Brandon, are you guys real fast? If not, I'm going into my next hearing on this 105. If it's not a yes or a no, then I'm gonna go to my 111.
We-
Hold on.
You have to get them in the room, right?
Pardon me? Yeah, we gotta get the rest of them in the room. If not,
Yeah, I was just back there consulting with them about potential
Solutions.
solution. There you go.
okay. So are we anywheres, or are we gonna continue this? Counselor? We've got other hearings, we're gonna take a quick break, but if you've got a solution, and it's gonna take 5 minutes, then we'll address it, otherwise you'll have to wait.
Sir, I think we do.
You don't even have 5.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity.
Mr. Webby?
Tim has agreed to do systematic inspections of invasive species. I think that was the question that was asked. We also discussed things with Brandon outside, and we're gonna be putting, we have about 3,500 square feet of area we have to restore, and we're gonna plant that with 10 blueberry bushes.
So you're requesting a continuance? We need a plan for that, I would think. I mean, it's up to the board. I
We would
mean,
request a continuance, yes.
okay. Just provide us a continuance in writing, just so that we don't run over the 21 days. Is the board comfortable with that?
Yes.
Any questions?
Yeah, I'm
Any-
very confident with the.
Okay, good.
So make a motion for 105 Palmer Mill Road to continue it until, do you want September 10th?
Yes.
September 10th, 2024.
I'll say,
And Mr. Webby would please write to us in writing that you guys requested the
Yeah.
continuance.
Yeah, she sent
And
an
then
email.
we'll have the plan.
That's fine. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
3-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do you want to take 5 minutes? Because this next presentation, I think, is
Take-
going to be lengthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Do you mind? We're going to just take we're just going to take a 5-minute break. You can stick around, but I did call your son.
Yes.
And we're still in November, excuse me, the middle into September. But you can stick around because I still have it on the agenda. Oh, we're going to take 5 minutes. Hey, gentlemen.
Well, 111 River Street got continued, so I really don't have anything left.
oh, is it continued? Oh, good.
I don't think Alan realizes that.
All right,
Well,
no.
that was the first one.
We have everyone under the same time, so we can bounce around.
Oh, so they might still be on.
We haven't discussed it yet.
Oh, okay, because it was the first one on, I thought I missed it.
No.
All right, well, I'll stick around then.
Yeah, I'm gonna take, if we're gonna continue it, unless he wants to ask you some questions.
The way I understand it, is build the road,
Sure.
so,
Another restroom, real quick, like. Geez, community meetings, they always go longer than here.
You know,
106.
that's 105.
This is the first one.
That,
66, 266.
this one. Right up top.
Be right back.
Oh, no.
111 River Street?
We're doing that next.
All right, good.
Oh, go ahead.
No.
Thank you.
Hey, how you doing?
And that's the last item.
I'm 111.
Oh, that's right.
That's good.
Yeah, let's go find some unexploded ordnance.
Yeah, right.
yeah,
Yes.
I think I met your brother this week.
Well, it all depends on which one.
I don't know which, but
It wasn't Frankie, because Frankie's in Florida.
Did you get my report?
she married to me.
No, I ain't got anything.
Okay.
That's James the truck driver.
What's that?
So then that's how you must know Bill, my husband.
Oh, yeah. He's new to know Bill. I don't know if he knows Sean, but yeah, James the truck driver.
No. Essentially, Concom,
Bill worked for
who I
Dana,
presume will then disseminate it.
Okay.
was working.
Okay.
He drove a truck.
Yeah, okay.
So he would have.
All right, thank you.
Because he said something about my husband, and I didn't get it, because Jeannie Nicole was out talking to Mary. 'cause
It's
she
all
moved down
perfunctory
from-
stuff. The real meter, it's like on the third page.
Okay.
And his brother was giving me a hard time.
That's typical of him.
And I was giving him one too.
Yeah, he get
And I
that.
said to Mary when he left, I said, that has to be a DS.
Ready for bed this month.
Two.
I'm usually ready to go till midnight when I am
See,
on
I didn't
Tuesday.
know him at all.
Well, you know, he was a truck driver.
Yeah, I
so
don't
he
know
used to
what's
leave
going on with
4 o'clock
me.
in the morning, come back
On Sunday,
7 in the afternoon, or
I
4
was
or 5.
exhausted. I went to bed at 6 o'clock. I didn't get out. I didn't get until 7 o'clock.
He was married, he lived in
I don't have anything going on.
I just 10 or 15 years he's been in
Sunday was a gorgeous day to sleep though. It was one of the nicest days to
It was
be.
a gorgeous day, all weekend. It was gorgeous. And I had to
Yeah,
move
no,
both
I looked
my
at
boys
him.
into college full days. It was like, it was.
He got a sense of humor.
Oh, yeah.
You get this pool, I get
You need
the
to know what to get in your skin.
that I paid so much money for
Oh my
to
God.
maintain, and I don't get to use it.
How's Mount Halifax? They haven't done anything down there, huh?
What's that?
Mount Halifax. Nothing's going on over there.
Oh, yeah, there's trucks all day.
Not in Halifax, though. No, it's in Bridgewater. Gotta be in Bridgewater.
No, you can see them at the top on Halifax. They're going towards the back to Highland Estates now.
Oh, okay.
You can see up in Pine Street.
Ready to go on in a minute? Okay, Conservation Commission meeting is back in order. Our next order of business, I'm gonna let you read this if you don't mind, is 111 River Street, DEP number SE 1710584. We're gonna take a minute. She's gonna read the meeting, notice. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Notice is hereby given of a public hearing conducted by the Halifax Conservation Commission under the provisions of MGL Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Wetlands Protection Acts, and Chapter 164 of the Town of Halifax Wetland Protection Bylaw on Tuesday, August 27, 2024, at the Halifax Town Hall, to consider a notice of intent submitted by Weston and Sampson of Reading, Mass. On behalf of applicant Gary L. Biswait of Cumberland, Rhode Island, attorney and counselor for the owner, Sisters and Sons Limited Partnership of Cumberland, Rhode Island. Lot 1C is a portion of the land associated with RTN 4-28775 and subject to the Mass DEP. The NOI submitted is a proposal as the first step in returning the site located at 111 River Street, Halifax, Mass. Shown on Assessors Map 117, Lot 1, into compliance with the MCP. Copies of the filing are available at the Conservation Commission's office at the Halifax Town Hall, or per request by email to peggy.selter@halifax-mass.org, or by calling 781-590-3872.
Okay, thank you. Having read that into the record, I'm gonna be looking for a motion to open the public hearing for notice of intent on 111 River Street.
I make a motion to open the hearing for 111 River Street.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 3-0. Audi, identify yourself for the records. If you've got documentation that should have been submitted to the office, so I think everybody's gotten some, but typically that's what we do, then it's becomes part of the record. But
Sure.
why don't you start with your presentation and
Yeah, these are things that have already been submitted, it's just photos and figures for
They
your
have. Have you-
Yeah, I
convenience
saw
if
them.
you'd like them.
okay, if they've been submitted, you want to take a look?
Yeah, sure, it's just a handout for your convenience if you'd like.
Okay.
It's, if not, then,
That's fine.
how about I bring up our
This is the
presentation?
PowerPoint he's doing
Uh,
tonight.
Oh, expert just left. You know,
Oh, wait a minute, there's a button here, but you know what? I'm not sure how to work it, so let me just see here.
Is Caesar still there?
No, Caesar left. You said press this button. Let me just see here.
Is it perhaps
The
this
copies of
folder?
the audit certified are here too.
But you got me, I did also look. I don't know. You can play with it.
Brandon is still here.
Let's see. Oh, wait a minute. Mhm. This is recent. This is, I don't know. That I don't know.
What folder do you keep it in?
Could it be? I have no
Could be
idea.
this PC, I don't know. I'm just saying it's gonna be,
What is it?
it's gonna be on one, on the left-hand side.
Why don't you come on?
I'm just gonna,
Because I have no idea.
I'm the blind leading the blind here, but.
Yeah,
I
okay.
use one.
None of that.
I don't know, maybe it's OneDrive. Nope, maybe it's this PC. Could it be in one of these?
Click one on, see what happens.
Yeah, see. Okay, no, empty. And this one, Conservation Commission. 8:27 meeting.
There we go.
Wait, we're not there yet.
Thank you.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. All right. I'm Gregory Russo. I'm the wetland scientist at Weston and Sampson. Here to present our notice of intent for this project. I'm also accompanied by Susan, who will also do some speaking in the latter half of this presentation. So, it's just an aerial of the site, just so that we kind of see what we're talking about here. It's this field here, down below the solar array, and then up the middle in between these two arrays here.
So it goes completely around the whole solar field? pretty much?
Yes, around this one.
Yeah.
And we'll see in a subsequent figure, there's kind of the shape of the subdivided parcel. This is lot 1A of,
Sorry, lot 1C.
1C, yes, 1C, my bad. This is kind of the site plan that we're going to be kind of talking a lot about through this. It is on one of those pages of the handout if you'd like to sort of follow along. Because I'm going to move away from this page, but I'll come back to it at the end. These purple lines you see are the proposed transects that I'll be discussing. We've got our extensive resource areas on the site, which we'll also discuss in a moment. So the parcel of land, it's been the subject of the Mass DEP notice of responsibility and a release tracking number due to the fact that there is potential for unexploded ordnances on the site from historic test firing. An investigation is required by DEP for the site. And as I said, the site has been subdivided. Lot 1C is the focus of this discussion today. The site contains wetlands, intermittent streams, and a perennial stream. There's also a good amount of 100-year floodplain on the site. All the resource areas were delineated, and the Halifax Conservation Commission issued an ORAD back in January of 2023, and is recorded at the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds. Currently, the site is old field and wet meadow, dominated by goldenrods and asters, native grasses. There are invasives on site, such as reed canary, purple loosestrife, and a bit of frag as well. And as I said, much of the site is within a 100-year floodplain. The easternmost portion of the site is natural heritage habitat for box turtle. The surveys will be taking place on foot and have been designed to minimize ground disturbance as much as possible due to the extensive resources on site. The transects that I pointed to earlier, there's going to be 5-foot transects moving in a north-south direction, and those have been laid out based on a statistical model for sufficient coverage for this type of survey, for a UXO survey. The transects are going to be traversed on foot using a metal detector. There will be no vehicles in any of the resource areas, and the vast majority of the site will not be touched by vehicles or machinery, with the exception of the existing access roads and one small portion of the site, which we'll discuss in a minute. The only time any ground will actually be disturbed with a shovel is when the metal detector indicates something below ground. If that is the case, excavation not to exceed 2 by 2 by 3 feet will take place to remove whatever anomaly was discovered by the metal detector. These will be logged daily to keep track of the amount that has been excavated, if it is excavated, so that we do not exceed thresholds going forward. The material that is excavated will be retained on site using tarps, and excavations will be backfilled and vegetation replaced immediately once the excavation has been completed and the anomaly has been removed. This will be same day. In upland areas only, mowing may take place to make traversal of these transects easier. As I said, we're not going to be using vehicles or equipment, so mowing is going to be in the form of, weed whackers, kind of brush hog, hand equipment. Now, there is one area on the site which is a former, this area down here, also highlighted a little larger down here. This is a former depressional area where extensive sort of dumping may have occurred in the past. This area here is going to have a slightly different survey protocol than the rest of the site. Now in this area, the same protocol using metal detectors to find anything underground is going to be, they're going to do that first. However, extra text pit excavation will take place throughout this former depressional area, and that will be done using machinery. The wetlands in this area are going to be avoided entirely. They're not going to be excavated. This is only going to focus on the upland portions of that former depression area. And the vegetation in the soil is going to be reserved and replaced as best as possible in the same way as it would throughout the rest of the site. Personnel and equipment are going to access using the existing access roads on the site. Basically just moving down the road, vehicles and equipment will be moved along the road as the teams work their way throughout the site, up and down the transects. The vehicles will be staged on the road. There are a couple of designated pedestrian entry and exit points that are indicated on the plans. The existing roads do fall within buffer zone. However, the roads themselves are not. They're dry, they're gravel, they're cleared. I actually was by today to look at them, and they've recently been mowed, so the roads are in very good shape. The vehicles that we're expecting are about 2 personnel support vehicles, which would just be, likely just be pickup trucks, a track-mounted skid steer and a track-mounted excavator for that depressional area. We're expecting minor temporary impacts to riverfront area, bordering vegetated wetlands, borderland subject to flooding, buffer zone, and 50-foot no disturb zone. However, we don't know where excavation is going to take place until a metal detector finds something. So we're saying that all of these are possible, none of them are guaranteed that impacts will occur to these areas. Due to the nature of these survey protocols, like I said, a precise area of impact can't be known exactly now, but based on the history of the site, other surveys that have been done on similar sites, we know the lengths of the transects, we know the widths of the transects. We've calculated an estimated area of proposed impacts that will be less than 5,000 square feet and less than 1,000 cubic yards. And as I said before, we're going to track daily any excavations that take place so that we can make sure to not exceed these numbers. If it seems like we are approaching these numbers, work will stop, and we'll have to go back to the drawing board, so to speak. And that's just a sort of a table summarizing the conservatively calculated estimated temporary impacts for the different resource areas and the different actions that may take place in them. As I said, there is a little bit of natural heritage habitat for box turtle. We've been in contact with Natural Heritage about that. We are subcontracting a someone to prepare a turtle protection plan for us and who will be on site to monitor for box turtles. And to, I presume that there will also be training, you know, doing sort of morning, you know, turtle sweep discussions with the survey crews. Susan, if you'd like to speak to the rest of the.
Yeah, My name is Susan Jason, along with Greg. I also work at Weston and Sampson, here to represent the project. I am what's called the licensed site professional on the project, so my role relates to the Mass DEP regulations and the ultimate reason why we're proposing this investigation to the commission, the need for the survey under the MCP regulations. So if there are any questions here tonight, I can speak more to that. One of the things that we're doing in preparation of the survey, we've had a preliminary meeting with members of the commission as well as safety officials here in town. We're in progress of developing a safety plan that we will, you know, make sure that all of the town officials are in agreement that. We've just today submitted it to town officials because the draft was just ready today. We had hoped to have it ready and vetted before tonight's meeting. But our intent, as well as part of this investigation, is to address any safety concerns that either the commission, the town officials, or any abutters or any members of the public have. And you know, we can go into any specific questions that anybody may have in relation to that.
Okay, let me see if the board has any at this point.
It's
No, I
not
think we
right
need-
now,
no, okay.
until safety.
We don't need anything right now, right? Do you need anything?
I don't have any questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Just so that, you know, for the public to be clear, you've got munitions in the field, you need to clean them up. Department of Environmental Protection has sent you the required documents that requires you guys to take them. I think I'm gonna hear from our review analyst first, see what any comments he has, and then I'm gonna open it up to the board and then the public.
Okay, yeah, I guess one comment would be the reason that Mass DEP issued what's called the Notice of Responsibility, so the document that obligates the landowner to conduct this investigation, is based on its affiliation to a Hanover cleanup site and the finding of munitions to the south in the town of Middleborough. So it is true to say that it has a relationship to an active cleanup site, and that Mass DEP did do a inspection of land once owned by the same property owner to the south in the town of Middleborough. So specifically on Lot 1C, which is the focus of our initial investigation, we don't know there to be any munitions. However, it's under the same responsibility and classification to conduct the investigation. So this is an initial assessment for exactly that, to see if there is anything, and if there is, there'll be a responsibility to deal with it. So just a slight nuance on that.
Okay. I know we're gonna have a few more questions. If you
Sure.
mind, I would just like ecosystems to
No
address the notice of intent and some of the concerns that the commission might have.
I have one question on that one.
On,
I can wait on this one because the two sites that she has referenced have turned out to be Superfund sites. So that is extremely concerning to me. I grew up near the old gun factory in Forge Park, over there in that whole area near the dump. I know the whole mess. I know the cancer rates. I know how it was disturbed. I'm familiar with the Middleborough one. So it's extremely concerning to me for Halifax to have to experience that, or potentially allow it to be disturbed to have everything done, where we have learned from the other two sites the negative impacts that disturbing the sites has caused. And I'm not against the cleanup of them or anything else, but, and I appreciate that, but I am gonna have concerns concerns and already thinking, is this leading to a Superfund site? Where are we headed next with it? Because that's what happened with the other two sites.
Okay, so I'm gonna let Brandon from Ecosystems just address the notice of intent
Okay.
and his comments and
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brandon Fanoff, Ecosystem Solutions, doing peer review for the Conservation Commission. I've been to the site. I did the INRAD last year, if you remember, so I crisscrossed the site like everywhere. And I went back to the site again last week to see what the conditions were. And I have seen enough and taken in enough information and seen enough data to be able to come up with some conclusions and recommendations. I don't have as much history as you all do, as being local folks, so I still have a few questions about the nature of all of this, if you don't mind.
Sure.
What is the history and the nature of the test firing here?
Okay, if I'm probably the oldest here. Back in World War II, this goes back, to my knowledge, World War II.
At least it didn't go back to the
Atlantic Research was the company that developed munitions for the military. Atlantic Research used that particular site to test those munitions. That's why you've got the bunkers, and that was very extensive. That happened in the 40s. That area was cleared. Let me just step back. They test fired multiple rounds from what I understand. They had projectiles, they had steel plates there, and then they either charged up this munitions to see what it would take to go through the steel plate. There's been some documentation and some common knowledge about that from some of our ancestors. So there's no question it was a test site. The site was cleared in the 80s. There was an order issued by Army Corps of Engineers for some illegal clearing in there. And I know from past experience that munitions or something ended up in some of the trees were there, and they ended up in fireplaces and wood stoves, some sort of unexpended ammunition. I don't know if it was the ammunition or the bullet. I'm not sure what it was, but there was multiple accounts of that. I kind of knew who the tree cutter was at the time. So Atlantic Research used it for multiple years. I would say that there's, and I have not been on the site, but there's thousands and thousands and thousands of rounds out there, based on information that I have from associates, farmers that have worked the field, people that have utilized the field for dirt bikes, hunting, and so forth. So that's the issue. Atlantic Research had it. They are now cleaning up Atlantic Research's property over in Hanover, which Ms. King was alluding to, that was supposed to be a 2-week cleanup, and I think the state police told me they've been there since 2016. It's quite extensive. Mercury in the pond, they haven't even gotten to the mercury. But they have protocols set up that as these munitions are found, when and how they're destroyed. So that's just a little background.
Thank you for that. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Absolutely fascinating. My next question has to do with the nature of the metal detector. So are we talking about the kind of metal detector you see with folks on the beach where they're kind of sweeping around, or is it something more sophisticated than that?
I guess Mr. Russo.
Yeah.
I'm gonna defer to Susan. It's generally the same technology, a little more robust, and just so everybody's aware, we've hired a UXO technician firm called VR Halifax, who this is exactly what they do. They're military trained ordnance specialists, and they are a private sector company now after founders retired from long histories in the military. So we have intend to bring in specialists in this area. They're going to be using state-of-the-art equipment. They've worked with us to just to develop the actual layout of the transects. All of that was done in consultation with UXO specialists who work in this area as their, specialty all over the country. So their equipment is state of the art. They've got all of the back history that we all know. They've, had some experience looking at the site already. They do this work all the time, and this is not to say that this is the last time that we'll be out here. This is an initial investigation to start the process of understanding what the land condition is, which is being required by the state. So this is, we don't know all the answers yet. This is to start understanding what is here, and if there is something here, to develop a plan to deal with it.
Okay.
I'll stay right there.
Oh, sure.
In the report, I was reading about how the ordinance specialists are in high demand. You basically got to take it when they do it. So is there a what is the proposed, if there is even a proposed timing of the year when they would be out there? Is there are they planning to do it any particular time of year, or is it just whenever they can get to it?
We have actually got them lined up, if you will, to hopefully be available to us as soon as we can have permission in place. So we have the agreement from the client, the landowner. We currently have these, ordinance specialists tentatively scheduled. The only issue is they have many, many jobs that are in demand and in the queue. So if our permitting is such that we're not ready for them, they may take another, job before they can come back. So generally speaking, our intent would be have them out here, late summer, early fall at the earliest, pending the permits. So right away is the intent of the investigation, obviously, with our permitting permission in hand.
Thank you for that. So best case scenario, we're looking at September, October? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if that's the case, then the vegetation is still going to be up and pretty robust. And I see the transects, so that you're definitely going to have to weed whack or brush hog, because the vegetation out there is mostly meadow vegetation, right? And it's pretty thick. It's pretty thick out there, and there's some places with, like for example, in the depression area, right in here, this whole general area in the south central portion of the property is occupied by dense stands of a plant called Jerusalem artichoke, which is a type of sunflower, and it's 7-8 feet tall. So yeah, you're gonna have to do some cutting and to get in there. So just want to let you know. But the thing is, it's herbaceous vegetation. You cut it, it will come back. And if you're doing, holes to dig, I don't think it's how many holes are you going to be digging, right? So if it's, I don't know, I hate to be imprecise, but let's just say normal amount. Well, you take the dirt out, you put it back, and next spring it's going to start growing back fine, right? But if you find out that this is I don't want to use the wrong words here, but minefield, so to speak, and you're digging every 5 feet, that's a different story. But we don't know. You're not going to know until you get out there, right? So I still recommend the plan that they're proposing.
Mm-hmm.
I still think this is all a very good idea, especially since it's being mandated by DEP, and it seems like a good idea to clear a property of unexploded ordnance and all that. So in the end, I have some recommended motions and special conditions. In my reading of the Halifax Conservation Commission Rules and Regulations, Section 401A and B, it's what you have to do to be able to do work within the 50-foot zone.
The variance.
Bylaw, yes, which means that the commission will have to issue a variance. And in my reading of the regulations, it's allowable and here's my proposed motion, to allow work within the BVW and within 50 feet of the BVW to allow the proposed work, because work is not expected to have adverse effects on the resource area and to prevent any potential for taking without just compensation. That's the wording in your bylaw. And in order to make things as clear as possible what the procedures and protocols are for the work, they're all laid out in section 3.0 of the scope of work and the project narrative in the Weston and Sampson report. So I recommend just taking that section 3 right out of their report and inserting it as a special condition, say, follow this protocol. It makes it all very clear. And any changes to the scope of work, however minor, here's the thing is, we don't know exactly what we're going to find, so there may be adjustments that need to be made. So any changes to the scope of work, however minor, must be approved by the Conservation Commission before implementation. And I made another recommendation that the work occur outside of the spring nesting season, because there's a lot of wildlife that uses meadow habitat for springtime nesting from April 15 to June 15. That's it.
Okay. Just before you get down, anybody got any questions of ecosystems at this point?
For stage 1, no.
No.
It needs
Okay.
to be done, it's ordered to
Okay.
be done.
Anybody from the,
Hopefully it's
anybody?
I have one
Okay.
question, if I might. Just, you mentioned if there needs to be an adjustment to the scope of work, so we agree that we don't know exactly what we're going to find, hopefully not much, but if we do, that's the intent of this investigation. There may be a need to adjust, for example, a transect slightly in the field, or, to what degree is an adjustment of the scope, and in what manner would we need to communicate with the commission? Is that something that we could do dynamically based on the need in the field? Because we want to be able to complete the investigation with the acknowledgement that, there may be some
Okay.
changes or some unexpected conditions.
Okay, let's just hold on 1 second. I want to make sure that the board has no questions for ecosystems on his report.
I have no questions for Brendan.
Okay.
Well done, excellent as
Nothing.
always.
Okay.
They do bring out a good point, though, of unexpected or emergency in this situation. So without an agent, they wouldn't be able just to adjust in the field.
Well,
So who would
They-
that fall
they
on,
would.
or could they do an aftermath NOI or updates?
I agree with 90% of what Brendan said. I think time is of the essence
Absolutely.
as far as the project's concerned. Hopefully, we will have an agent. I have been filling in for that particular person, but I think we really need to discuss not necessarily how it's going to be done, but some of the procedures.
Like the
You know,
protocol, something they find, here's the protocol.
Yeah, I mean, if you find something, I personally don't see a problem as long as we've got some environmental monitoring is probably the simplest way. You make the decision, all right, and you come back to the board if we need to make some adjustments at some point. But to stop in the middle of the process doesn't make really sense to me.
That's what I'm referring to. It's gonna be very difficult for us to come back.
Yeah, and I think
Every
I
2
think we
weeks.
understand that, and I
Yeah.
think that Brandon's position is well taken. Under normal circumstances, if there's an issue, you come back and see us and go from there. I know you're gonna find a lot of clay, you're gonna find a lot of munitions. Do we wanna prolong the process, especially when you got the notice of non-compliance? DEP is, you could potentially come in and say to us, let them do whatever they need
Yeah,
to
we want to
do.
fully utilize our subcontractor while they're in place. The experts will be here, boots
Correct.
on the ground, and we want them to have the flexibility to be as, proactive as possible while
Okay.
we have them.
Okay, and I think he's doing his job.
So Yeah, the good suggestion is we have some kind of representation there.
Yes.
Most.
Yes. Hopefully, just so that you both know that there are some candidates for the health agent, for the conservation agent. So potentially by the time this project goes forward, we'll have someone to monitor, or we'll have professionals like Ecosystems come up with a schedule for monitoring. Any questions from the public? Go ahead, Chris.
Chris Winwoods, 129 Circuit Street. This has to do, it's like something Member King mentioned about disturbing the soil. For years, they dumped the sewage cake, 18-wheelers all day here and all over these fields, which you can do very little research and find out all the New England states having trouble with that now with PFAS chemicals all coming out. From my understanding, it was done incorrectly, a basketball size. It would take a year to break down all over those fields. I know the DEP issued that there's arsenic here, that they were afraid for the safety of workers at the solar panels. Was disturbing all this stuff, go re-release the stuff into all the tributaries and into the watershed.
Okay. Chris, if I can address that, I'm a little familiar. It wasn't particularly in that area that they were dumping that that material. That area, to my knowledge, that's been farmed after they made that major disturbance in 1980. It was farmed. It was hayed. Those bunkers contained manure from the old Cumberland's farm in Bridgewater, and they dumped manure there for years. I'm familiar with what you're talking about. I thought it was a little further, let me see, no, a little further south. But having said that, it's the responsibility of the LSP, whoever's on site. If they do encounter something unusual, they're looking for munitions, but if they do encounter something unusual, they'll have to note that and address it. Because when all's said and done, some LSP is going to have to sign off that this site meets the requirements that DEP set.
And I can speak also to, I am familiar with the arsenic situation that you mentioned, and there was an investigation, there was a detection of arsenic. It was here near Lot 1A. That is in the DEP record. That is part of this same process that we're going through now under the what's called the Massachusetts Contingency Plan regulations. It was investigated and closed, so that did have to also follow the same steps for identification, investigation of soil and groundwater, understanding of hydraulics nearby, chemical testing, and risk, what we call risk characterization. So that was evaluated and closed, if you will. But knowing that as LSP for the rest of the site, that's a piece of information that we absolutely know and is part of our overall understanding of the land. And arsenic is a potential contaminant of concern that we'll be looking at. And to that point, depending on what we do find in this proposed investigation, we may also be doing soil and groundwater testing. Right now, we don't know exactly where that would be. It would be, essentially within the limits of Lot 1C. And that's a question for the commission as well, as how we should handle that going forward in terms of the notice of intent. Is that an element that we could potentially address now, or would we need to come back to the commission after conducting this assessment? If possible, we like to dovetail that analytical testing as quickly as possible with any finding in the field. But again, because we don't have any findings yet, we can't tell you exactly where we might propose to do that. So it's an unusual situation.
Ms. King?
I am personally not against them testing as they go without coming back before the board. But I also, and you served on the Board of Health, Alan, so you may know the answer to my question, is some of them we may have crossover with the Board of Health. And I don't know what the Board of Health's procedures or recommendations to you would be. And I don't want to make a decision myself or as a board thinking that it's okay that we've just trumped the Board of Health or any other department.
Maybe I can answer that. they have certain reporting requirements. So if they do find traces of arsenic that exceed the normal levels, they're gonna notify. There's a whole chain that they notify. There's no action that the Board of Health is gonna take regarding that. You're required under your either the NON or the MCP.
There's a public notification
Right.
component to
Yeah,
the
they-
regulations that we're
Yeah.
complying with.
They're required to notify everybody, and there's no,
Yeah.
I mean, this is not a situation where there's no sanitation code violations, there's nothing other than them reporting it to them.
Yeah, and to
Um,
speak to your specific question there, in my experience of being an LSP for many, many years in many, many communities, there isn't a Board of Health approval process for us to install monitoring wells for the purpose of investigation.
Okay.
If we test and have a finding, for example, an arsenic finding, then there are public notification requirements that we have to comply with to notify when we go to do reporting on that, the chief municipal officer, the Board of Health, and other entities within the town, you know, and potentially the public if anyone has asked us for specific information. And any of the information we collect under this process ultimately becomes publicly available. It's available anytime anybody wants to ask for it, but there are certain reporting milestones that we have to comply with under the state regulation, and the way that information is packaged in certain standardized reports, and we actually submit it to Mass DEP, which is on an electronic, publicly accessible format. And there's also an aspect where any member of the public can approach the town and ask for paper copies if need be. So information is publicly available, and that's part of the process that we have to comply with.
I'm gonna kind of cut to the chase here. Does any of the commission members feel uncomfortable with the fact that they're gonna have to go in, mow, hand dig? I don't see an issue with that.
I'm okay with the test wells too, and
Yeah,
have them
okay.
going along. I'd move it along.
Yeah, I think that you'll have to amend your request to include the test wells.
Yeah, we can do that,
but-
and even if the commission wanted, a condition that we may be able to communicate to you in advance of installations. Those aren't done immediately.
Okay.
Those would be done, essentially with the same type of equipment that we're proposing under this order, this notice of intent, ideally to get in order, which would be a track mounted, similar size to an excavator, probably even smaller. So no difference in the equipment or the level of disturbance.
Okay.
It's just that the locations, I can't, know right at this moment.
I don't think we expect that, and I don't think that we're gonna try to regulate how you're gonna go in and clean the place. You got a mess, you need to clean it up. If you gotta cut vegetation, I'm assuming, and we are gonna be looking for environmental monitoring, is if you cut some vegetation, you're gonna place that over your excavation. That's the simplest way.
Yep.
As the board, I think the board's got copies of some of the memorandums that's gone out. I did have a meeting with public safety officials and the state police bomb squad sergeant a few weeks ago. It was Jason, and we've come, at least as personal people at town level, we're going to be looking for a couple of things. One, we're going to be looking for, again, the environmental monitoring, and we are going to be looking for a plan. How this stuff, where this stuff is going to be stored. We need a plan. If you're going to go in and you're going to map out and take all these transects and you're going to mark 6 of them in a day, when are you going to excavate? It's clear to me and from the individuals that run the town that we're going to want personnel available when you're going to be doing the excavation. We have a small town. We have 3 firemen on during the day, 2 to 3 police officers. So the general consensus was, and especially from the sergeant that has spent the last few years at the Hanover site, how are you going to dig them, when you're going to dig them, and personnel on site, especially safety personnel, that'll be there. If there's an issue, then they can either handle that right away or call to make sure that you've got personnel there. And the other thing is, and we discussed this, was if, and I did see a little bit of that new report, but I come in at 4:30, that you are planning on having some sort of a structure there to put in some of the ammunition or whatever you find. If you do find any unexpended, okay, we want protocols. We want to know if you find it. We want to know if you're going to blow it up. We want to plan so that you got a reverse 911 to all your direct abutters. And if you're going to blow it up, and you've indicated in your report that you wanted to do sirens. Sirens are fine, but I think a reverse 911 indicating that at noontime on Thursday, there could potentially be some explosions. And then you're going to do your horn blast, obviously. That's the only thing that I know that we at the town level, and I had some communications again today with the fire chief.
And I do understand, we provided a draft plan today. My intent was to have it out and vetted, if you will, with folks in the town before tonight. We just weren't able to get that together. So we certainly agree that we need to work through that safety plan and make sure both the commission and the fire and the police departments are in agreement with it.
Just let it finish. Go ahead. Are you finished? Okay.
I am, yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's a topic for tonight's meeting, or, what we would ask is to potentially do that during, after we close the hearing, but before we conduct any work on the site, come to an agreement.
Yeah, that'll be done prior, but Ms. King had a question.
Oh, I just had a statement. I was just reading Alan's notes from meeting with everybody, and just that Middleborough, per the state police and other things too, where it's right on that line, that Middleborough's also notified too.
Sure, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I have notified pursuant to the request, so they're on, and I will forward to them, or I'll have the administrative assistant forward to Middleborough everything you've provided to us.
Sure, we're happy to have them be part of all of that dialogue.
If it ends up you're going into Middleborough, then that's their ball of wax.
Well, again, right now, we're only talking about lot 1C.
Correct.
So
That's correct.
So we completely agree that that's reasonable that they be part of the dialogue, from a notification standpoint. But, right now we're focused on this one land parcel. It is absolutely true to say that all of the land that was once owned by National Fireworks, that is owned by our client, is regulated and is under the same classification. So we're not saying this is the only place we're looking. It's just that this is the first 111 acres, I think, that we're talking about starting on. And it doesn't include land in Middleborough at the moment.
I did also, I notified.
Just go back up.
Sure.
Identify yourself, please.
Greg Russo again. I did notify Middleborough abutters of this hearing as well as, when we set out all the abutter notifications.
Yeah,
I did the Middleborough ones as well.
That did come in. I didn't see very many of the.
There were not many, no.
Okay, all right.
I think it's
again,
because of there's a lot of open land here, so within the 100 or 300 feet, whichever it was, of this border, there were not that many Middleborough abutters, but the list that I got from Middleborough, I did notify.
okay, so I think that makes it a little easier for you on the reverse 911 and as far as the blast. I mean, somewhere, I did read it quickly. I think part of the process, you were talking about taking it off site. That's beyond us. I can't see you taking anything off site, but that's beyond our control. Anything you find is going to have to be expended on site.
Yeah, again, that's, I can't even, it's our specialists who are munitions specialists who will make those determinations. I agree that the intent at this point is not to take anything off site. There may be debris that is non-munitions related or what's non-energetic. I think that's maybe what you're referring to. If it's debris, we may, for example, find an old piece of metal that's an anomaly on the metal detector. We remove it, but if they observe it, they inspect it, determine it to be non-munitions. That debris would eventually be disposed off-site. So there's categories of materials that may be found, that may be munitions and non-energetic, maybe metal but non-munitions, and maybe munitions and energetic. Those are the determinations that we're gonna be looking to them to make.
Okay, but your plan prior to any digging should be, this is how we're going to do that. I mean, I think I asked about the roadway. If the roadway is sufficient to come in and we can get emergency vehicles in and out, then I'm okay with that. As far as whatever you find for metals, obviously you're not gonna bury it. So that's gonna have to be contained in a unit. One of the major issues with the police is you got a wide open area that's subject to kids on bikes, there's hunters. You're gonna see somebody's gonna see some activity and wanna know what's over there. So we had discussed potentially if you're gonna store anything on site, whether it be debris or any live ammunition or any expended, whatever it is, that it's gonna be in a contained area, fenced-in area, potentially
This
lighted.
team actually brings a mobile, what I'll call a safe on wheels. I don't actually
Okay.
know the appropriate terminology
Okay.
for it, but it's a containment mobile vehicle that's intended to store potentially, energetic material is the terminology that they use. So they will have a storage facility with them that is mobile, and we'll define a place with agreement of safety personnel where that will be staged.
Okay,
during the
I think staging is, as long as potentially somebody can get there if there's an accident, would be some fire personnel. But we addressed, if you're gonna have that unit, that's fine, that would be possibly fenced in with some lights. And it's important for the town, I mean, to get the people notified if you're gonna do any blasting. Blasting is probably gonna be limited to, a certain time so people can expect if there is. If you don't have a lot of abutters, that makes it a little easier, I think, on the reverse 911. Horn blast is probably not gonna make a difference, but I agree, a horn blast, 1 hour, whatever you, I'm not 100% sure what Hanover does, but I know they blast, I don't know if it's 15 minutes later, they blast the horn and then they do the munitions. So that plan I haven't seen, and having spoken with all my public safety people, we need to know if you're gonna do it on one day, then if you wanna keep it into one day, then you only need personnel in environmental monitoring that particular day. Maybe the environmental monitor would just say, okay, if you're gonna go out Wednesdays and you're gonna start digging, then maybe I'll come by Wednesday afternoons or Thursday. That's something you can work
Yeah,
out.
and certainly we can work out those details,
Right,
but just the distinction is on the transect areas as the personnel are walking and observing and testing. If an anomaly is identified by a metal detector, they will investigate it at that time. And the metal detector has, a potentially 3-foot depth. And, so they will, let's just say, find an anomaly, investigate that anomaly. They will make a determination whether that is a piece of metal that's not munitions, maybe, a piece of old car part. They will look at it and say it is a munition. And they will make a determination whether it is safe to move or unsafe to move, energetic or non-energetic. So the intent is to essentially, on the transect areas, make that determination as they go. And there's a couple of reasons for that. It's to deal with it right then and there. It's more to go back. We don't want to mark locations that there are potential anomalies which bring attention to a location that has not been investigated. So we want to use the specialists to do what they do, and this is what they do on these investigations. When we get to the depression area, they're going to use that same approach with metal detectors and cover the entire surface area of that 100%. So they may or may not find an anomaly. If they find an anomaly, they'll use that same approach to do a hand dig. But just because of the MCP regulations and our what we're trying to accomplish for the investigation, because there's a slightly more, concern of what was this depression, what went on here, we have an obligation to understand the vertical and horizontal extent of any potential impacts from a chemical standpoint. So because of that, we proposed in the filing the potential for deeper test pits, because we may use a metal detector for 3 feet, but that doesn't answer the question for me as LSP. If there has been buried in here, that's not gonna tell me the answer. So we will do that same approach initially, and then we will do a number of test pits. How many? If we have nothing, then we'll do one, and we'll do some. If we start to find a lot of findings, that's a different situation. We may even have to stand down and go back. This investigation is not intended to be a full remediation or a full, removal action. It's the initial step to understand what might be there, how much is there, what is the item that's there, what type of handling does it require. So, some of it is not known at the moment, but that's why we have to be dynamic. We may have to, shift gears and take it. If we find a lot, we may step away, stop work, come back with a different plan, which is more along the lines of a remediation. Not only for many reasons, because that's not what we proposed in this permit application, that's not what we've hired the subcontractor to do at the moment, that's not what we've got permission from Mass DEP to do. So if it's a remedial action, it's a separate effort. So that's the difference here.
So in my humble opinion, with someone monitoring it, you can make those decisions and they can always get back to the commission. I mean, we don't want to tell you can only dig 3 feet or 5 feet wide. That's your call. But if we have someone there on the ground, then the commission is going to be well aware of what's going on without waiting for a report 2 or 3 weeks later. So that's why the environmental monitor, I think, is important to us.
Okay, and that's, and
Okay.
just so the commission understands, we will have staff in addition to the subcontractor. Our role is gonna be exactly that, LSP representative, including identifying, what's being found, locating it by GPS, reporting back on, is this a location that we should also take a soil sample for one reason or another? So there's not gonna be a scenario where those subcontractors are on the site without any oversight, if you will. In the natural heritage area, at minimum, we will likely also have to be doing turtle monitoring in relation to their regulations. So there'll be an element there. So we do understand that, there's some requirements, but we also have to take into account that there'll be a safety plan, that we will be, essentially anyone working on the site will be under the training and purview of the UXO technician experts. And, us as laypersons entering the site and, escorting along with them, we need to follow the protocols that are developed, because the presumption is there may be a finding. So in general, the less people that are on the site is what their protocol says, that only absolutely necessary personnel should be on the site during one of these investigations. That's their number one safety approach. So we need to work all of that out, because we have to dovetail the regulatory requirements and permitting with the UXO safety aspects of this particular investigation.
So your plan is to take your transect area, mark it, dig it, as soon as you find something, dig it.
Yep. And also because if there is significant findings, transect number one, finding, that's a different situation than an occasional finding over 111 acres. So we need to have that knowledge to essentially make sure our approach is correct, make sure that the safety protocols are correct, make sure that we have the right budget in place. So, and for 111 acres to be traversed once, marked, and traversed again, it's just not feasible. And it's not in keeping with the way that they normally approach these investigations.
And I assume it's safe to assume that VR has the professional and the knowledge and the experience with EMS, the public safety offices.
They do, and they're certainly
they have their
willing
own
to work with
plans.
whatever local requirements, but they are routinely operating in remote areas areas where those types of services are not available to them. They're trained to deal with those situations. They work under their own very strict health and safety plan. Their normal protocol is to be able to extract their own personnel to a muster point where safety personnel can get to them if need be.
So I would think that that's outside of conservation's scope, but if that's how they operate, I would personally recommend reaching out to the police department and the fire chief
That's
and making sure that's okay what they are. Here are their trainings, here is what they do. So they're comfortable that their town's being taken care of too, because still
Sure.
the liability still falls on the town. And we do wanna make sure, I mean, it's not anything small.
Absolutely, no, that,
First-hand experience here on
absolutely,
being
that,
over at King
that
Street
is,
and
you know,
Hanson, so it really needs to be done, and the
Mhm.
safety aspect is huge. But the safety aspect, I do feel is out of the scope of conservation, but I would feel more comfortable having speak with our public safety officers, having Alan involved. That way, everybody is on the same page and comfortable to go
well,
forward.
I agree with you completely, so that's why we had an initial meeting, to be honest.
Awesome.
Alan was present, fire chief, police chief, the sergeant from the bomb squad, and VR Havlis was actually present. They're from Tennessee, but they were present remotely. So our initial dialogue to bring that, we didn't, you know, get all the answers, but we certainly heard the concerns, involved their conversation, you know, they were involved in that conversation, and they gave initial feedback. And they've been part of the dialogue the whole time. So from their perspective, they, you know, they do this work all the time and don't have safety professionals, you know, on standby with them. They're normally working in a protocol under, you know, DOD regulations and everything that applies to their industry, where they are using safety approaches, including a two-man working system, the ability to have a vehicle to extract themselves, using radios. They have protocols in place so that when they're doing an assessment, if there is a situation that needs, you know, that needs medical attention, they can get themselves out to a location where they can call 911 from a known muster point. So that's the, you know, the intent here. Also because they are the trained professionals. They have to be concerned about the liability of anybody else who's on the site, as well as the landowner. So their general approach is to have as few people as possible, and essentially they're taking their own liability, but this is what they're trained to do. This is their specialty.
So it sounds to me that one of your issues is whether or not you want to have someone on site when you're digging. As far as the public safety aspect, we had an individual that has spent many years in Hanover. And the protocols that they've used, they use both police and fire the whole time. I don't think in Halifax that we're gonna need the police, but your plan is we're going to have to include some sort of a plan in the event that someone gets hurt. And if you decide you want to dig every day, then you might need a fireman there every day. If you decide you really want to dig on Thursdays or Fridays, then those are the days we need public safety personnel. They don't
I'd just
have
like
the,
to, again, make the differentiation that in that site, it's already gone past the stage of assessment, if you will, and it's into a very known and distinct remediation phase. So there's a difference there where they know that there's significant materials. If we do an initial assessment, find significant materials, that's not what we're proposing to do at this time. This is not a remedial effort.
I think what the town of Halifax is trying to avoid is the fact that the original protocols in Hanover didn't include a lot of town officials and others. And after the site closed and some things were up and running and walking trails, there was still live ammunition out there. Someone walked on it. There was a major accident. And Halifax, and not being at the meeting and other things, and I'm not trying to speak for Alan, are trying to avoid the mistakes of other municipalities because we now have the experience and we now have the knowledge. Like, I don't think there's any leeway for you to say, we don't want Halifax fire present when we're digging.
I'm not saying that, I'm
And
just, you know,
and we do
but I'm not sure.
100% understand your professionals have these things,
Yeah,
but we're adding additional protocols and safety to it.
and I'm not disagreeing, it's just, you know, I'm just keeping in mind, this is 111 acres of primarily wetland resource area, and there's, you know, access roads, but they're going to be remotely walking large distances. So we have to work out what that looks like, you know, where would the safety vehicles be, what is the chain of communication? So I'm not disagreeing, but it's not as simple as a fire truck is near where they're working at each aspect of these transects.
But that might not be the case. I mean, I don't know that I'd wanna have a fireman, 25 feet when you're trying to dig up an unexpended, ammunition. So, but the point is, we're asking for a protocol. We wanna make sure that, A, there's an issue. We're not gonna put a fire truck down there, but we can get a brush breaker in with some water. We can get an ambulance in there, or we can get a cart in there to take someone out. This is the important part, and we're gonna put that buck on you. We've spent a lot of time on this. We've had conversations with our public safety people. We need a plan.
Do we want to
And
continue?
the environmental monitoring, I guess we'll have to sit down with the professionals and decide just exactly what do you want to see. I mean, do you want to? We'll give you the okay to do so much, but if you run into a problem, you need to refile. Whereas that environmental monitor could say, okay, let's do what you need to do, and I'll notify the commission. We don't want you back every 3 months trying to file. I think it's clear to me you got a mess out there. Just so much of a mess. It's a big mess. I mean, you've got years and years of unexpended ammunition. So, are you going to be out there for 3 weeks? No, you're going to be out there for a while. But we need to be protected. But go ahead.
I have a question for Brandon. For the environmental monitoring, what would you recommend? Once a week, once a day, every other week?
It all depends on what you end up finding, right? And how intense,
Yeah,
how
it's the purpose
intense
of
it
the
is.
environmental monitoring to understand the level of disturbance in the resource areas.
Yeah, in regards to Wetlands Protection Act and the Halifax Wetlands Protection Bylaw, it all revolves around the wetland resource areas, right? So if you're gonna be doing, digging in the BVW, and this train sites go through quite a bit of BVW, so that's absolutely a possibility. If you don't find anything in the BVW, then I suppose it's not as necessary, but we have no idea.
So having,
We do. The place is full.
it's bad.
It's
It's bad.
bad.
Okay,
It's-
okay.
I mean, the farmers that have tilled the field for the hay, it's bad.
I mean, I'm gonna assume the biosolids, I mean, we know there's
Yeah.
so much,
Yeah.
it's loaded.
Right.
I don't know that.
Then it's your level of comfort.
Yeah.
It's
I
your,
mean,
it's the
I've
commission's.
just, on other non-UXO sites, I could throw out an example where I've been in situations where environmental monitors have been hired by, let's just say DOT, agency work, or, any number of projects. And there can be a daily dialogue. Here's what we're finding, here's what we're not, with incorporating a weekly inspection or every other day inspection. So I think if we could leave that dynamic, and whomever that environmental monitor is, we can certainly have an ongoing dialogue. I envisioned a component of the plan would likely be to provide the main contact for the town, which I assume might be the fire chief or the police chief, a daily report. Here's what we're finding, here's what we're not. That, again, is gonna be worked out, but I think that same type of approach could be done for environmental monitoring, where we're reporting every day. We dug up nothing, we found nothing, or we found 10 things, or, we ourselves need to monitor that. We need to monitor our permit approval. I need to be able to communicate with Mass DEP. I need to know that we're complying with the contract that we've got for subcontractors. So it is gonna be dynamic, so I think if we could identify that environmental monitor individual and develop a dynamic plan.
I would think that's gonna be ecosystems. I mean, they're on board. So I think that a plan established by the two of yous, okay, and the police chief and the fire chief do not want daily reports. I mean, that should be coming back to the conservation office.
Well,
you
I
know,
just assumed that maybe something they want into the safety plan.
well, as far as the safety plan, somebody gets hurt, how do we get them out to a hospital very quickly? That's the safety plan. You know, in this town, if there's a medical issue, police respond. You can't get 2 vehicles down that road. Again, we got 3 officers on during the day. If there's an incident, we don't know how to get someone in there. So that's what we need to establish. As far as the monitoring, it's not cut and dry, because you're not digging 3 holes a day, you might be digging, but that's something that you could deal with ecosystems through us and come up with a plan as far as the monitoring part.
So I'd be.
We need, so, but it's the safety part, to me, that's gonna be the biggest. And then let me just address Chris, and then go to you.
Just one last question. I just keep hearing the digging and stuff, to look for stuff first. But what triggers like the soil sampling before you're doing all this dirt disturbance? So nothing leaves like to the Winnetoxic, the waterway, because the biosolids, it says RDX, HBX, lead azide was all tested out there.
You know,
There's concerns, Chris.
Yeah, that's up to the LSP to make
It's a
that.
good question, and that is part of what we have to do. Once the site becomes regulated under the Mass DEP program, it gets what's called an RTN, so that's just a generic tracking number. But essentially, once you see that that's been assigned, that's a mandatory process. And there's no way to close a site unless there's also soil and groundwater testing. So this is the initial phase, and the intent is an obvious one. Let's make sure there are no munitions or clear areas so that we can go back and safely collect soil and groundwater samples. So that's part of what this investigation will require. This is the initial step, and that's why I mentioned to the commission, we most likely will have to go back and do groundwater monitoring wells, but we purposely target those. If we find an area of concern, munitions, it's a potential source of chemical contaminants as well. That's where I'd like to go back and put a monitoring well. So I can't tell the commission today where that is. We want to do this first, but that will be part of what we do to close this site.
Chris, would it be helpful if we asked for them to send everything they need to follow, even if it's just an online link that we can
There's a lot
get
of
to you?
information I can share with the public
So-
that are what
No,
we
I'm just concerned nothing leaves the site once they
No,
start digging and all
I know that, but
Oh, yes.
the
So at this
regulations,
stage,
the
there's no
procedure
intent
is
to take
like,
any soil away or anything of that nature. And let's just say we did find something, soil of such contaminant levels that we recommended should be remediated at this time. That also requires certain plans that have to be submitted to Mass DEP, a certain amount of testing of that soil material itself before I can send it anywhere. So there are protocols in place to make sure that anything that's leaving the site has been properly assessed and going to the right disposal endpoint.
And it would not be part of this filing.
no.
It's not part of
No,
this
it's not
file,
part.
no, because we don't know what we're
Correct.
removing yet.
This filing is strictly to investigate anything they find to remediate.
And
Go ahead, Ms. Green.
education, anything you can provide to the public,
Yep.
whether, and I'm not gonna tell you how to do it or how you usually do it.
Sure.
Social media through the town, I don't know what we'd have to do to post it to our websites and things, I think would be extremely beneficial.
Okay.
And I don't wanna see the residents go, oh my God, an investigation of ammunition, but, and then have some gigantic fear-based thing, like, I'd like to do
Right,
my
and we
best to
certainly-
avoid that too.
Absolutely, and that's frankly the intent of a component of the regulations we're working under is public outreach and acknowledgement. So any member of the public, even who's here tonight, if they want to provide their name and phone number, we can be as simple as that. Any information that's requested directly, it can get more formal from there. And And certainly, we can absolutely tell the public that any documentation that we produce is ultimately public information. It's not immediately on the website, but if somebody asks me for information, I can provide it quickly. But every, for example, 6 months or a year, and if we find something significant, we may be under a much tighter timeline because it becomes a different category. We may have to submit a 60-day plan and a 180-day plan. And so there'll be a lot of documentation that we have to put together related to all of this at any point in time. I absolutely agree that the more information that we share and the more everybody feels comfortable and aware, it helps us do our job because we can advance the study and do what it's intended to do, make sure that the land is safe. So anything along that line, we're absolutely happy to communicate with the public.
It is getting late, so, again, I think we're gonna have to continue this. I don't think you're totally prepared. Just to go over, you are gonna need a variance request to work within the 50. You're gonna have to make a decision. Can NOIs be amended, or they have to file a new one for their digging investigation? I don't.
I believe they can be amended. We
well,
have amended them in the past.
You have, okay.
Under what circumstances would they have to amend the order of conditions?
No, excuse
Or
me.
the NOI?
You just, to include sampling.
We have that in there. You know, we said, you know.
Okay, you had mentioned something about,
The only thing that, I don't
The
have
test wells.
monitoring wells, so potential monitoring
okay,
well
if you're gonna look at monitoring wells, we can include that in the order of conditions.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we can include that in the order of conditions, so, okay.
Yeah.
That's not a big
If
deal.
we could put, you know, an order line item for that, even if it's to provide a figure or a review of where we intend to place them later, but to have them.
Where you're gonna put them is irrelevant at this point, and you gotta make that field decision. So, you're looking for permission to go in and dig, which we're inclined to agree with, that you need to do that. We're just gonna be hung up on, the monitoring, and I think that can be worked out between the entities. Bring it back to the commission and say, okay, this is what we've come up with. But a butter notification, reverse 911 on the horn blast in the public safety part. I don't know that plan that you sent tonight covers all of that.
Okay, but.
That's section 3.0. Is that what you're talking about that I was mentioning, Mr. Chairman?
There's
No,
something that
it's
came through.
separate. So and tell me if I'm wrong, we agree that a safety plan has to be developed and agreed to by town safety officials.
Correct.
And we intend to do that, and we, intend to further our dialogue. They've
Mhm.
just received today a draft plan, and there's additional dialogue and potentially more information to be provided. But is that a separate issue from the wetland issue and closing the hearing? Can we take that as an item to be, finalized prior to start of work, as well as working out an environmental monitoring schedule? Whoever on his staff.
It would be my personal opinion that safety doesn't fall under conservation. We're not the fire department, we're not the police department, and we're not public safety.
Okay.
Our jobs, the
I know,
environment, the wetlands protection.
and I'm gonna disagree only because we spent some time and research on this, and I think experience from the Hanover issue. I just happened to be in a neighborhood when one of them things went off. I had no idea. So I have followed the process. And I can tell you that public safety is heavily involved in Hanover, heavily. They don't, but with,
The point is,
so,
this board is not public safety.
okay, that I agree, but I think that
So-
we can include, and I think we're gonna be required to. I didn't see what Hanover did as far as when they went in front of their conservation commission, but.
I think that we should close the hearing and allow them to, like we did prior, with the conditions of making sure that they have the safety plan in order, that they have everything done, because they have experts ready to come in, and we don't want them to miss their timeline, and I certainly don't want DEP, Wide Halifax Conservation, not act on this ASAP.
Yeah, but also with the orders of condition that we started out early on with ecosystems, mentioned a few things. I think that should be part of the
Yeah.
notice of intent. like, don't do it in the spring, because things are growing and everything else. The ones you mentioned, like
And,
3 or 4
and,
things.
and you already know about the turtle plan, because that falls under
Absolutely, we're
conservation.
already working on that,
Natural
so.
heritage, yeah.
The turtle plan is kind of, the turtles usually come out in the spring. That turtle plan, well, that doesn't, you know, but they can do whatever they
They
want.
do, but they,
It's-
October 15,
it's-
if
yeah, it's through
It's the end of something.
yeah, like the middle to the end of October is when the silt fence, you know, what they call the turtle protection barrier, isn't as necessary. But the thing is if you don't do a turtle sweep before that time, you may not find them because they're hidden somewhere, you
Okay.
know. They're hibernating
Because
somewhere.
our intent is to hopefully get out before October 15th
Yeah.
conceptually or thereabouts.
Right,
We
so,
understand that that's part of our requirement.
right, so Commissioner King makes a point here, is if you don't start acting soon, they might miss their turtle window. And then they would have to wait until next May or June.
As far as
And
I'm
then they
concerned,
won't be
I
able to do the
have,
sweep.
yeah.
Right, between October and May.
Yeah, we have,
I,
And then winter.
I do
Wait a
believe
minute.
that
Just, okay.
the response that we got back from Natural Heritage had, I believe it did have a date range that they were requiring the monitor, and I believe it was like April to November, or maybe,
I think
maybe
it was October.
Yeah, I think
So they did give us a
May,
range
July.
in which they wanted us to do the monitoring, so to me, that means that if work is delayed until late November, or then we can do the work without the monitor because the turtles are not active, but
You don't, well, have you gotten your letter from Natural Heritage? Have you gotten your letter of no take or no
Yes,
take
yes,
with
we do.
conditions?
Yes,
yes.
Yep.
So it's a no take with conditions,
It's spelled
and the
out.
conditions are, what were the conditions?
I don't remember them offhand, but
Turtle
this is where I'm
plan,
referring to the
turtle
stage.
plan and turtle monitoring, and I believe the date endpoint was October 15th. But regardless, whatever
Right.
the dates are
Okay.
and requirements are, our intention is to comply with
Right,
those.
so I'm pretty familiar with box turtle protection plans, and it involves putting up during the growing season, putting up a turtle protection barrier. I don't know how applicable it would be in this situation,
In this
though.
situation,
111
they were-
acres.
Yeah, they were a little bit, it was a little different because they understood the
Yeah, the
transect
nature.
approach. So they were looking for monitoring preceding any mowing or any active removal or
Right,
anything like that.
So I think I know what they're saying. Basically, you have to do a turtle sweep, so in
It's like
the
an
zone,
active sweep. Mhm.
in the zone where you're gonna be doing your 5-foot swath,
Mhm.
you need to have someone who is pre-qualified by Natural Heritage to do such sweeps for box turtles specifically, that knows what they look like and how to look for them, to go in there and sweep the area before it gets mowed down, so you don't hurt any potential turtles.
Exactly, that is,
And
That's
in
what
this
they were-
case, we need to have that individual escorted by
Lined up.
our UXO sub-consultant. So those plans are being developed because
Are you
Alan, can we just
Heritage?
some way give them permission to do the turtle sweep
not.
as soon as
I
possible?
think
so-
we're, well, I don't know that you need permission to do the,
The small.
No, you can
wait a
just
minute,
do
hold
it.
on.
the
let's
turtle
get-
sweep is a
Hold on, we
separate-
got too many conversations here. So, okay, who wants to talk? Go ahead.
I was asking Brandon if he was already pre-qualified to do the turtle sweeps and things. He is not, because
Okay.
that would have worked well.
It's one of the great
Okay.
disappointments of my professional
Yeah,
career.
good, turtle sweeps.
Because
Okay,
I have a degree in wildlife biology from UMass, and I never got it, because you have to be someone else's protege who was already, and I never had that.
Yeah, and we're
So-
proposing Ryan Madden at LEC, who's a wildlife biologist. His
I know
work
Brian.
is, you know,
Okay.
I think well-known in the
Okay.
area and
So
pre-qualified.
we're at a point, because we already had one midnight meeting, we're not having another one. We're at a point where I think the commission is in agreement that it's gonna be okay for you to do what you're gonna do. One of the biggest things is the safety plan. So I don't have a problem if the commission wants to close the hearing and issue some order of conditions. The public safety plan, I had communications with fire today. I've spoken to the town administrator, okay, he wants to have a meeting to review your plan, but obviously, we don't have it. How soon are you going to get the plan based on what we've asked you to do.
I think you have some of it, but what I think I will do is take what you received today was a, truncated health and safety plan, if you will, from VR Hablis, from me via them. But because I think I know exactly what you're asking for, I'll prepare a separate memorandum or, additional submittal to the commission that can be distributed to all of the safety heads, in addition to what you received today. So we can have that out to you probably within a week, certainly within a quick timeline.
I will send your
Let's
report
schedule
out.
another meeting if that's what everybody would like to do, to go over the draft.
Okay, yeah, I will send what you sent me today, once I review it completely, to both police and fire and the town administrator, and I will send it to Middleborough, but, okay, I think the board's inclined, or the commission's inclined. if-
Close
Can
the
it be
hearing.
sent, can all the information be sent to the other board members too, since we've discussed it such in length?
Yeah, all the information has usually, I can't you can't do the reply all, so anything that I've received, and I think you've gotten it, is I send it to Kathy and have it forwarded, Peggy, and have her forward it to you guys, just so that you have it well prior to the meeting. So I guess what I'm looking for, if the board's, any questions from the audience? Seeing none, is the board ready to make a decision on closing the hearing to issue order conditions?
I put a motion that we close the hearing.
I second.
Okay, all in favor of closing the hearing on 111 River Street? All in
Aye.
favor? Aye. Okay. The hearing's closed. We will put this back on the agenda. We have a partial list of conditions. I think you can tweak that. The public safety aspect is going to be part of it. So the sooner you get it, the better. We'll have it on the agenda for the next meeting, and the board will review it and ratify it, and then we'll issue orders accordingly.
We appreciate
All I can say is, the sooner you get it in, then the quicker we'll be prepared at the next meeting to sign off on that and issue those orders. And I would,
certainly have another meeting separate meeting with safety heads.
I will have, but I need that full report. I mean, these guys don't want to read 6 pages of how you're gonna do it. And that's why I asked you for that. I mean, your original report was 94 pages.
Right.
Whatever, it was close to 100. And then I asked you, to narrow it down, and then you answered some of the questions that were in there, and that's what I brought to the,
Oh, the NOI was, yes.
that's, yes, 90 some odd pages.
Yes,
And these,
well, what you received today was not 100, but it was still probably 12 pages. So
Okay.
I think I can provide you with a more concise, very specific document that's not as lengthy, that provides exactly what safety heads will need to have, at least advance the dialogue and hopefully come to an agreement on how we approach the work.
okay.
But
So-
we've got to recognize too, they have federal, state, and municipality laws so we do appreciate the in-depth of it. It's just new to everybody in
Well-
And
Halifax.
to be
Okay.
honest, what I submitted today was a truncated version of even what I submitted, because we tried to mine out a lot of the federal DOD aspects of the work that are mandatory, but maybe don't need to be the topic of the discussion.
Okay.
So I appreciate your comments.
Yeah.
There is a lot that we are trying to comply with all at one time.
As long as you can make us happy.
We will try.
Okay, the hearing is closed.
We're sure we
We're
can.
gonna put it on the
We
agenda.
do feel we're hopefully all on the same page, because we feel this is a very important investigation for everybody involved, so
Okay.
we'd like to get it done
I'm
as soon as we
I'm
can.
hopeful, since they didn't make the fireworks here, and they didn't make the bombs here, and there wasn't the airstrip and different things that went through here, like in the Hanover, Rockland, Hanson Superfund site, that this goes much smoother for everybody.
That is
And I
what we
wish-
also hope, but
we wish you the best of
we'll
luck.
know when we, get
Okay.
Why don't you just clear out with the Thompson machine gun, we say, anything goes out.
You're on tape. Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I have 4 things, just to summarize for the next meeting. Get the public safety protocol on, right? I have a note here, add monitoring wells. not so
That
much
can
to the
be-
plan, but, I don't know, maybe some kind of quick one-page.
Will you be drafting the conditions for the order?
I probably will.
Because we can have a dialogue on that. I
Yeah,
can
you can-
suggest
Yeah,
some
that's-
language for you to
and that's
consider.
fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah, add the conditions that I recommended,
Mhm.
and an environmental monitor schedule. It doesn't have to be, well,
We want something, you can work that out with
I
them.
can work that out, yeah,
and then-
separately.
Can we call
Depending-
that an environmental monitoring plan as well? Because that may have
That's
some
fine.
dynamic
Yeah.
components to
That's
it
fine.
that we'll develop with Brandon.
The other
Yeah.
thing is, I will, depending on when we have this meeting, when they get this together, then I'll ask you to be involved with that meeting,
Okay.
as long as you're available. If you're not, I'll go.
Oh, yeah, that's right, that during the day meeting, right?
Right,
Right,
right.
got it.
If you're available, if the plan is sufficient, then okay.
All right, we're moving
Okay,
on.
folks, we're gonna be moving on. Thank you so much.
So just,
I'm gonna
so
get-
safety plan,
Just pick and choose the discussions?
Yes,
We'll pick her.
yeah, 340 Plymouth Street. I'm gonna kind of take things out of order. I did call her son. The paving has been
okay, so
continued
those are
until
orders, so draft order,
mid-September.
conditions, and then safety
But,
plan.
and the other thing that hasn't been done, but I've been pretty persistent, is the catch basins in front of you, those have not been inspected yet, but they will be. Okay, I've been
Thank you.
on that.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate
Okay.
it. Thank you all.
Okay,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Thank you for
Okay.
explaining everything.
Think I'm good? You good with me?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I'm good, I'm good, thank you,
Have a good
appreciate
day.
it. Yeah.
Kim?
Okay,
All right, take care.
just discussion items, performance bond, security agreement update.
So
I-
that thing is,
Yeah, I did reach out, I'm not gonna get into detail
Yeah,
too much
no.
with this. I did reach out, we're working on it. I don't know, there might be a little transition with town council, but, we're still working on that.
okay.
Folks,
Got-
Folks.
excuse me.
out in the hall, okay?
Yes.
Paul? Yep.
Here's the-
Keep, we're on the record, so, okay. 3 Elm Street, I did a site visit there for the certificate of compliance, and I did find that it was, it met the criteria.
Do we have to take to sign it?
I mean,
It says ready for board approval to sign off.
okay, then, why don't I do this? Why don't I get a motion to sign off on the certificate
3
of
Elm Street.
compliance for 3 Elm Street?
Put a motion that we sign off on 3 Elm Street.
Seconded.
Okay, motion is second. Vote?
Aye.
Aye, 3-0. Okay, let's sign this. Okay, pretty good. This king. Good thing you know how to do that.
All right, nice and, all right.
Okay, next item on the agenda is Lot 11 Palmer Mill Road. The enforcement order update, I did not have the time to draft the letter, but I will draft another letter. And at that point, once we get the letter out, then the board will have to decide what course of action they want to take. Kathy had talked about fining. I'm not a big fining fan, but it's up to the board. If we can't get compliance, and this has gone on since early July, it's the similar situation as 105. We'll put it off. I will get a letter out and to see if we can get this resolved. This is gonna either require a full replication, or if they wanna file a notice of intent, they can, if they're gonna do something there. But they haven't done anything, and we're into August, so it's been almost 60 days.
And are we allowed to have all his lots on the same agenda? I know we have to address them individually,
We,
but just to stay
we have,
intact and on target with him.
we have to, based on the filing.
Okay.
So once you file, then you get on the agenda. And then once, you don't get off until we make some sort of decision. So chances are if you filed in February, for one, and May in the other one, if the one in February hasn't completed. I mean, that other lot has been on for a long time. In the last meeting, no one was here, so they continued it. And now we're in where nobody knows what to do with the plan, but, okay. So I will get that letter drafted. 285 Home Street, just to update on that. The stormwater management application has been submitted for 285 Homes. Just so everybody's aware, that's been very contentious. Kathy and I spent some time a month or so ago reviewing the file. I think that we can hopefully resolve 285 Home Street without any use of town council with this next.
Will we need a peer review for that stormwater they're gonna do, or is it?
Yes, yeah, that has gone out to be peer reviewed.
Okay.
But where this is stormwater, it'll be on the agenda. Well, excuse me, it'll be on the agenda, but we won't hold any hearings until everybody has responded. So they submitted, goes out to peer review, then it'll go Board of Health, Selectmen, and then we'll discuss it. All right.
Bills?
Bills.
It says chair signed, you signed the bills already?
Did we already do
I don't know,
341?
she had me come in and sign something, so, is this the bills?
No.
Oh.
We have meeting minutes.
Okay, where are the bills though? Oh, I think she wants these to be affirmed. We don't have them, I think we can just affirm them.
Yeah, I don't see a folder with bills tonight.
Okay, I'm going to be looking for a motion, and I'm gonna read everything, and I'll take one motion. Invoice number W24-1975-2, Plymouth Street, map 73, lot 7A, peer review, $1,125. Invoice W24-1978-2, 265 Mont Ponce Street, peer review, $1,125. Invoice W24-1979-2, 347 Elm Street, peer review, $225. These had to be paid. I did sign them. I'm looking for a motion to ratify my signature.
I put a motion that way,
To ratify.
to ratify the bills,
Yes,
payments.
that's fine. We have a second. We'll have a vote. Aye.
Aye.
3-0. Okay, meeting minutes. I believe, Ms. King, you need to sign off on this, I think.
We all do, and there's a note in these minutes that the tape ended before the second motion and the vote was finished. So we have to make sure that if you go to the page right before here, we just have, that the footage was cut off before there was a second and the motion to adjourn was fully finalized. So Cable's accidentally ending our meeting too early. Or we had technical issues.
Okay,
Not technically.
I'm not sure. We didn't know it until afterwards.
Yeah.
And that was the late one. So I think I'm okay with what we have here. If somebody wants to question it, that's up to them. That was a 5-hour meeting. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the June 25th, 2024 meeting minutes.
I make a motion to approve this 6/25/24 meeting minutes as is.
Look for a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I just want to make a note that I had some communication with the,
Is this the one I wasn't at?
oh yeah, that's right. With the girl that's doing the minutes, and I'm gonna ask her, and I'll make sure that it gets in on the next one, that we include in the meeting minutes whatever we reviewed. Meaning, tonight we reviewed the site plan from whatever, And that's all. That just, if someone looks at the meeting minutes a year or two down the road, we're okay.
All right, thank you all.
It being 10:30, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
I put a motion on the adjourn.
Oh, come on, but we want
Good,
to
second?
stay. I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
All right.
3-0. Oh, my goodness.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.